Can be no doubt about that. The U.S. government shut down on October 1st, and there's no sign that it's going to reopen. September 30th is the fiscal year end for the United States Corporation, and it looks like this time they really didn't get the money to continue. Now, what I know from previous experience is that when there is a default at the international level, they're given 15 days to come up with the money. And that means that if I am right about this, starting sometime next week, the U.S. military will no longer be receiving their paychecks, and it will be game over for the current system. I'm hoping this is going to happen, and we're trying to set up a war council to deal with the transition away from the United States Corporation and to something that, once again, restores power to the people. Now, to understand how important this is, I want you to take a look at this picture here. This is the Trump cabinet meeting with the heads of the Chabad Lubavitch organization. These people are not Jews. They worship Satan. Their founder, the fact that the Trump cabinet is in on this is a sign that they need to be removed, and that's why the white hats have placed a 100-kilogram bounty on each person in that photograph. And my understanding is that if these people who are trying to kill you, your friends, and your family are removed, arrested, and brought to justice, that the reward can be collected at any BRICS nation embassy, or perhaps or Taiwan or China. In other words, also they have to be removed. And the fact that Trump is in that picture tells you everything. Now, the other thing is, that right now, Donald Trump is talking about sending Tomahawk missiles to Russia. Okay? Now, that is nothing more than an attempt to start World War III, because if Tomahawk missiles are sent to Russia, that means only Pentagon officials, U.S. military people, have the ability to carry such attacks out. And that means that they're going to try to start World War III, which is exactly what Chabad wants. And the other thing that the military and the intelligence community need to understand is that the civilian governments in the West are not working for the people. They are controlled by this cult through a combination of blackmail and bribery. Now, I want you to watch this clip to see exactly, what the situation is with the U.S. Senate.
That's their point of view. And they're saying, okay, if you don't take that view, we may come after you.
So you can see that 93 out of 100 senators do not work for the American people. They work for Benjamin Netanyahu, which is, the majority of the people. This is just not right. This is not a system of government. This is a system of slavery. Now, I understand that there is an attempt by Trump to, impose military law, and he wants to use U.S. troops to go after his opponents in the United States. And, to his credit, he is going after Antifa and George Soros and all these, terror groups financed by the Zionists or the Satanists, and that's a good thing. But it's not, it's not enough just to go after your enemies. The whole thing has to be cleaned up, and until we see the Epstein stuff out there, this is not going to work. And the other thing is that there's nothing he can do about the United States being bankrupt. He's not going to be able to extort enough money from Europe or Japan or anywhere else to pay for what he needs to pay for. It's just not going to happen. The whole thing has to be shut down. And as I've said before, the White Hats are standing by with an offer to finance a jubilee in the United States. That means all debt, public and private, will be written off, and there will be a redistribution of assets. All the money that was stolen from the people through central bank fraud will be returned. It should be several $100,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States. So it's good that this thing falls apart. It should have happened a long time ago, but that is what we're going to do now. And there is no other choice. We're going through a very tough transition, but at the end of the day, everyone will be freed from Babylonian debt slavery. That's what we're working on. Now, the other thing that people need to be aware of is that there is evidence now we really are dealing with a rogue artificial intelligence. If you look at the huge amounts of money being spent on AI, on these mega databases by companies like Oracle, NVIDIA, and ChatGPT, you'd think that there's a business plan behind that. But no, the data shows that 95% of companies are unable to make money from AI. In fact, it's now turning out that AI is actually causing productivity to fall because lazy employees use AI to make reports that look plausible, but because AI cannot check facts, it's not connected to reality, it ends up causing more work for coworkers. And right now, this AI thing has gone so far, and this internet stuff has gone so far that 70% of content produced on the internet now is created by AIs, and 60% of communications is bots talking to each other. This is not a good way to use our energy or our money, to have bots talking to each other, and it needs to be removed from the system. They need to unplug all this. I mean, I've been watching some documentaries, and the AI is really awful. Like I was watching a documentary on the Battle of Waterloo, and they had these AI images with cannons firing from the wrong end. Or, they had one on Kennedy where they featured this orange-haired young guy who wasn't Kennedy yet, because AI is unable to distinguish realities. What I'm trying to say is that the one thing that has been booming in the United States, the super high stock market valuations of most of these high-tech companies, is a hallucination. It's one of the biggest bubbles in history, and it is about to burst. The other thing is that France is very close to revolution. I think they lost their 5th prime minister in 2 years, and support for Emmanuel Macron is now at 14%, which is a record low for any French president. And Emmanuel Macron is a front for Jean-Michel de Rothschild. And my French intelligence sources tell me in the satanic hierarchy he is above Donald Trump or any of these other people. So if France falls and Macron is either arrested or flees the country, that will be the first domino. But when it falls, that will result in blackmailed pedophiles like Keir Starmer in the UK, Mark Carney in Canada, the Merz in Germany. All these people will fall, and I'm believing that Trump is not going to last either. That's what I'm hearing. Now, again, like all of you, or most of you, I supported the Trump who was elected in January to clean up the deep state, and he was trying very hard to do that, but he has not been seen since June. So the Trump we're seeing now is a Chabad puppet, not the original Trump from the U.S. Space Force, the white hat Trump. I haven't seen him, but you can tell that the current Trump is compromised because he was there with Alec Bourla of Pfizer promising $70 billion U.S. tax money to make mRNA vaccines in the United States, even though it's been proven they've killed millions of people. Bourla should be facing war crimes charges, not, this is fascism. And right now they're trying to pass laws in Canada, the UK, Germany, the US, where if you write something they don't like on the internet, they can arrest you, they can cut you off. They're trying very hard to prevent us from realizing the truth, which is that we're ruled by Satan worshippers who use a system of Babylonian debt slavery. This system is now collapsing. So, I hear the White Hats are going to be holding a war council, and they're going to find concrete ways to move in Mar-a-Lago and arrest all the people there, and move into the Senate and arrest the people there. All the traitors need to be arrested. Now, the other thing is, the breaking news is that Trump did not get the Nobel Prize. It was a Venezuelan opposition leader. So that means that a decision has been made that, Trump cannot continue. He's not viable. So that's a very important thing that's happened. So definitely something big is in the pipeline, and I think the coming week is going to be historical. Let's see what happens, but there will be war councils. There will be a lot of stuff going on in the background. Right now, there are heavy-duty back-channel communications between the U.S. military, British intelligence, and the Russians. But the Chinese are out of the loop in this. This is going to be a Western solution to the Western problems, and then we can deal with China. But first, the West needs to remove its satanic infection, and that's what's going on. Okay, well, that's about what I have to say for myself this week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. Does the Commonwealth exist? If so, who is in control of the Commonwealth, and how can you help us reform this?
The Commonwealth is still very strong, and it's built on a network of personal connections at high levels, and I'm hearing that there's going to be a serious reform in the British royal family, but the key to the Commonwealth becoming viable again is to make sure that India and other Commonwealth members are full participants, because when it existed in the past, it was a sort of a white man's club with white men at the top, and no one from India or somewhere else could rise to the top of the Commonwealth. That is now changing so that it will be possible to have someone from India or Belize or any other Commonwealth country run the organization, and they have historical links. They're linked by the English language. They have sports meetings and lots of personal communications, and it wasn't really an evil organization, although it had its flaws. And I think the Commonwealth will become increasingly important. And behind the scenes, the Commonwealth has been allied with China to do the Belt and Road Initiative and other peaceful things for the good of the planet. So I'm a great supporter of the Commonwealth, and I'm hoping it will be reformed so that it continues to stay as a major force for friendship and good relations between nations. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Trump is visiting Japan on October 27th. The objective may be stripping money from Japan as the U.S. is bankrupt. Nonetheless, Japan has no money to save U.S. bankruptcy, as the agriculture bank Nochu has lost a huge amount of money in the U.S. bond market, and I cannot imagine any significant amount of money is left in Japan. Inform us why Trump is coming to Japan, and if Trump's objective is money to avoid U.S. bankruptcy, where is this money in Japan?
Well, yeah, I mean, he is going to come to try to extort money. I don't know if he'll be around until then. I'm hoping not. But, the thing with the Japan Agricultural Bank is a real crime. You see, the Norinchukin, the Japanese Agricultural Bank, is actually a real bank in the sense that it's 100% deposit base. It's all its money is actual deposits. And most U.S. banks, more than 90% of what they lend is not backed by deposits. It's just money they put on their books out of nothing. So what happened was they used pressure on Norinchukin probably to force them to hand over money, which is, disguised as bond losses. And then Norinchukin, to recoup that, raised the price of rice drastically in Japan, which caused a popular revolt against the Japanese government. And the government, I mean, when people's food is impacted, that's when the, sleeping masses wake up, because that's something that they're not going to stand. So I guarantee you, even if he does come, he'll leave empty-handed, because Japan has nothing to hand over. The same is true of Europe. Germany's economy is 20% smaller than it was in 2018 because it's been forced to buy expensive oil and gas from the United States, and the Europeans do not have the 1.3 trillion to give the U.S. that they think. So I doubt he'll come, but if he does, he'll leave empty-handed, and hopefully, if he does show up, they'll arrest him for war crimes. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Can you clarify if the military brass attended that meeting that was called? You originally said in your Monday newsletter they wouldn't attend because it was possibly a trap. Real Raw News is stating that about 250 were requested to take polygraph tests to prove if they were loyal to Trump. I know RRN isn't 100% to be trusted, but it's an interesting take since you initially said it might be a trap. If they did decide to go, what was the action? What was the actual purpose?
Well, I did talk to people about that, and the conclusion was that they made sure that everybody would be safe, but the speech that Trump made and then that Hegseth made was very badly received. But right now, a large part of the military is still following Trump because he's their nominal commander-in-chief, but a growing group is aware that the real Trump has been replaced by a fake and that their commander-in-chief is not there. But there is a group that is still trying to start or use a threat to start World War III in order to get more money to keep the U.S. government going, but I don't think it's going to work. So what will probably happen is when the military stop getting their paychecks, they'll finally wake up. But I do know there's been a split with the Five Eyes, and so that right now at the highest level of the intelligence community, they are no longer with Trump, and they're negotiating with Russia for Ukraine peace, and also Israel has basically lost the war in Gaza, and Egypt has moved in. So we'll see, but there is still a group in the military that probably has some sort of compromat held against them that is still behind Trump. That's the reality right now. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Wasn't 9/11 and Iraq thing all connected with Bush and Tony Blair? The same Tony Blair that hasn't gone away despite the links. Instead, he's made a, quote, sir, for what it's worth. Now they're handing him out Disney tickets, like Disney tickets these days. Instead of being somewhere else more deserving, Blair has allegedly snagged the being in charge of Gaza role. Have you heard anything about this?
What I heard is the reason Tony Blair was not executed for his pedophile crimes and other things is that he secretly provided a lot of testimony about the cabal and Epstein Island and all that kind of stuff. But there's no way on earth that he's going to be made governor of Gaza. As I've mentioned earlier, the Egyptians are actually in there now. Israel's actually lost the war. The only thing we're seeing is fake news on our screens, but that's not the reality on the ground in Israel. And I'm sure that Israel is about to be replaced by the multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious state of Judea. And Blair will have no role in that. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. Another earthquake has hit the Philippines. This is the second earthquake this month. Is this some form of super weapon, or is it natural?
I'd have to look into that, but as a general rule, if it's an artificial earthquake, you have to look at the seismograph because it has a telltale sign. It starts with a big bang and then boom, 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 like that. Whereas if it's natural, it goes boom, 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 boom. And the other thing is you have to look at where it was, because if the earthquake started around a military base, then you can tell it was some kind of weapons attack. I'll have to look into that, but you can do your own research by looking for the seismograph and seeing if there's a military base around the epicenter. Let's start with President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet choices. There's some good news that Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his nomination as Attorney General, and Pam Bondi, Florida Attorney General, is now the new candidate. And she, unlike Gaetz, is on the record as being against. So this is a sign that there will be a crackdown. Furthermore, Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, has said that a lot of the 300,000 or over 300,000 missing children who crossed the border into the U.S. went to pedophiles, and that they're going to investigate that. So it looks like we have a real crackdown on these mass child sacrificers. It's now, in the public domain. And of course, they're freaking out big time. The Khazarian mafia are still desperately trying to start World War III, but the military is not listening to them. They tried this long, missile attack into Russia because Russia had previously warned that such an attack could lead to nuclear war. But instead, the Russians know very well that these people are trying to start World War III, and they're not going to let them do that. But they did retaliate with a weapon that's never been seen before, and it's a multi-warhead ICBM but non-nuclear missile, and you can watch it at the clip right here. So what the Russians have done, as you can see, is demonstrate that they know who they're dealing with, and that it's not the real governments of the United States and the West. They're dealing with a rogue faction that is about to be removed from power. And they are getting desperate. I mean, there's now shredding trucks outside the Justice Department. They're trying to shred documents to hide evidence. And they're doing other things. So I'm hearing that, if things get too bad, there will be some kind of military action inside the U.S. before January 20th. In other words, we don't want to leave these criminals on the loose and in power much longer. Now, the other thing that's going on, of course, is the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and others, including Hamas members who, work with Netanyahu or Netanyahu. And this is a clear sign that there's some kind of crackdown that's going on, and that these people will face justice for their crimes in Gaza and in Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky is also going down as a war criminal, but more important, we're going to see removal of governments in Canada and the UK and Australia, and probably New Zealand as well, as the regime change in the Five Eyes continues. Now, as far as Canada is concerned, it looks like Donald Trump is taking up the offer to become the first president of the United States of North America. And believe me, Canada does not have a functioning government right now. It is controlled by criminals who stole the election with the help of Alex Soros. And Alex Soros, by the way, is threatening to hit the people with saying they're playing with fire. No, Alex Soros, you're going to jail and probably going to face the death penalty. So you can see that the Speaker of the House, who's the homosexual lover of Cass Trudeau, according to the CIA, is cutting off the mic to prevent a member of Parliament from speaking. That's what happens in dictatorships, not in Canada. And it's to my great shame as a Canadian that the Canadian military and intelligence agencies were unable to prevent the takeover of that country by Nazis. But in any case, Trump is probably going to take over. We'll see some Space Force people have contacted me. These are people I've met before who demonstrated some very unusual off-world Tesla technology. They are now in a certain Asian country to do the due diligence to confirm that there is gold to back the Future Planning Agency. And also, this will help write off all U.S. and probably world debt. And we'll have a fresh start. There'll be a talk with Asian secret society representatives on Sunday to confirm this. And if the gold, if we can't prove the gold is there, then we'll have to start negotiations on a basket of commodities to back the financial system. But this is happening. And I try to avoid, woo-woo topics. I'm a here now guy in the real world, operating on real news. But my Japanese military intelligence sources have told me that some very unusual anti-gravity craft have landed at the Yokota Air Base in Tokyo with members of the Secret Space Force. I will believe it 100% when I actually see it myself. I have asked for a chance to ride on an anti-gravity craft and then film it and share it with my audience. But until you see that or you ride one yourself, take all this with a grain of salt. But we are hearing from these sources, and it's becoming harder and harder to deny, that the quarantine on the planet Earth may be about to end and that we'll be allowed off-world. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, I can get on an airplane and fly to Canada, but I cannot get on a flying saucer and fly to Mars. So we'll see. But it's getting more realistic, and there's more and more different sources confirming this. So again, until you see it with your own eyes, don't believe it 100%. But clearly, what's happening now is a lot more than just a presidential election. I really do think that this is the beginning of a new age, and I am hoping that we're going to be very pleasantly surprised many, many ways over the coming months. Let's see what happens. But it's clear the white hats have won, and it's a mopping up operation now. So, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from viewers and readers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. What are your thoughts on Trump's cabinet picks so far? How do you feel about him picking Dr. Oz to run Medicaid and Medicare services? To me, it seems a little comical, as Dr. Oz was involved in pushing back quack supplements that he claimed were miracles for weight loss.
I'm going to defer on that because I don't know enough about this guy, but the important thing is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's going to crack down on the systematic poisoning of the American people and Japanese and other people by the pharmaceutical industrial complex. So that's the one to watch. And as far as supplements are concerned, they're going to have scientific evidence to back their claims. Otherwise, they'll be cracked down on by the authorities, which is what they should have done in the first place. And now the other cabinet member I forgot to mention in my talk was the Commerce Secretary. I think it's Ludnick or something. He was the crypto guy that Elon Musk was pushing for Secretary of the Treasury. And the fact that he didn't get that job is further proof that they're going with the gold-backed system and not going to try to go into crypto. So that's an interesting pick. And also, it looks like it means they're going to try to come up with a deal with China that does not involve tariffs. It'll involve instead getting Chinese help to rebuild U.S. industry so that the United States does not have a chronic trade deficit with the rest of the world. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. Do you think the Biden administration will start World War III with Russia before Trump can get into office? I read recently that Ukraine struck Russia with U.S. missiles, not to mention that Putin said they would go nuclear if this occurred. How far do you think this will be taken?
My understanding, as I mentioned in my talk, is that the world's top military are not obeying the people behind the fake Biden administration, and they're not going to be fooled into starting World War III, which is the only get-out-of-jail card these Khazarian mafia have now. By the way, another thing I forgot to mention is that there was some kind of mysterious heavy-duty airstrike on Palmyra in Syria, and that's where they had the Ark of Satan. And again, I try to avoid woo-woo stuff, but I'm hearing that some kind of portal was shut in that attack to prevent the Satanists from escaping. Again, I'll believe it when I see it, but that's what I'm hearing. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. It has been my understanding that Donald J. Trump supports Israel, but not the Zionists. The Zionists are the cabal satanic regime controlling Israel, and Donald J. Trump will take down the Zionists to free the Israeli people from their evil tyranny. Am I wrong in thinking this?
I believe you're right. The Jewish people are going to be liberated after thousands of years of slavery under Babylonian Satanists, and Israel will be replaced by the nation-state of Judea that will include the native Judeans, misleadingly called Palestinians, with full citizenship rights. That's what I'm hearing. So yes, he's going to help liberate the Jews. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Russell J. Gold discovered that the U.S. bankruptcy was ending in 1999. Since then, USA corporations ceased to exist. He captured our flag and became CIC and Postmaster General. Since then, all these presidents have been selected and are illegitimate. He has developed a quantum financial system. Do you have any knowledge of him or what he's been doing? He says he has beaten because they were trying to get him to surrender, which tells me he is legitimate. Please enlighten us on this if you can. I was wondering if he is now working with Trump.
I don't know about this, but I do know that I actually know the person who developed the quantum financial system, and it's not him. And furthermore, the quantum financial system is already operating. People still mistakenly think that it's a SWIFT system that runs international finance. That is an old legacy system that uses Windows Vista, and it's used mainly by drug dealers now. And when I go to an ATM in Japan and withdraw money from a Canadian bank account, that is the quantum financial system. It's not run by him. It's right now going to be handed over, I hear, to the Future Planning Agency, depending the outcome of negotiations with the Asian secret societies. But I don't know more about this individual to make a meaningful comment. Other than that, I can confirm he did not start the quantum financial system, and he is not president of anything that I'm aware of. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. You mentioned last week that we should stop paying rent and not paying bond payments. Does this mean that if I have a property that someone is renting, I will lose the property? What about us that have worked hard to own separate properties to collect rental income?
The proposal we have on the table is that when everybody is given ownership rights to their residence, their primary residence, that landlords, with the exception of, mega landlords like Vanguard and State Street, but, the average little old lady living off rent will be given the equivalent of rental income in government money so that they will not suffer any loss of income. That's the plan on the table, but it's all going to be worked out in public with a lot of input from the people before this is actually implemented. But we understand that legitimate landlords need to be compensated and will be. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week, and let's see if we can finally get some rides on flying saucers before too long, maybe by next week, but only believe it when you see it. Anyway, I hope to see the final financial collapse of the U.S. corporation, and right now they have 43 days worth of strategic petroleum reserve, and they might kick the can down the road a bit further. But in any case, there's nothing going to be happening. Although on August 12th, 6 planets are going to align. There's going to be a peak of the Perseid shower, and there's going to be a solar eclipse in Spain as well as a new moon. So the cabal does plan events for such dates. So if something happens around then, we'll be on the case. But in the meantime, I've decided to take a look at my own personal experience in the dirty war in Argentina in 1978. My father was stationed as Canadian ambassador to Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay in 1978 at the peak of the dirty war. And I was there, I had a front row seat, and I think what happened then is relevant because the same people are trying to use the same playbook in the United States. Now, when I arrived in Argentina, we had 24-hour Argentine Special Forces guarding us at the embassy, the Canadian embassy. And I used to talk to the guard that they had assigned to us. And he showed me his notebook from the military academy. And it was like in grade 3 handwriting, but it was full of instructions on how to make bombs. And he explained to me that his bosses had ordered him to set bombs, him and his colleagues, to set bombs in different parts of the city so that they could blame it on left-wing terrorists and communists. And they proceeded to use this as an excuse to seize power, and they murdered at least 20,000 people, usually after torturing them for a long time. And this policeman, he told me about what their thinking was. He said, look, this is a perfect chance. We can get rid of all these antisocial elements, communists, known criminals. We can just drag them off the street and clean up society once and for all. This was the sort of thinking that was going on, and my father was at the heart of it. I didn't know this at the time, but he saved about 10 to 15,000 people from the Argentine death squads. They'd run into the Canadian embassy seeking shelter. He would provide them with Canadian documents, Canadian passports, or other identification, and then they would be smuggled out of Argentina by the papal nuncio, the ambassador for the Pope. And this was because the government, when they have death squads, so for example, if you like some woman, but she's got her fiancé who's in the way, you phone up the police and you say that the fiancé is a communist, and he's gonna get the midnight knock. They're gonna drag him out of his house, and they're gonna torture him if he confesses to being a communist, and they're gonna kill him. In the meantime, poor girlfriend's crying and saying, "Oh, what happened?" And I said, "Oh, I'll comfort you. I'll comfort you." And this is the sort of thing that was going on. And I had personal direct experience with this. Well, not direct, but what happened to me was a group of Argentine First Nations came to the embassy to visit a delegation of Canadian First Nations. And while I was there, a member of the Argentine First Nations invited me to visit the southern tip of Argentina, Patagonia and El Bolson, which I didn't know at the time, but was a major Nazi hangout. But in any case, I decided to go with him, and we were taking a 24-hour bus ride from Buenos Aires down south. And we're sitting in the bus talking about, Don Juan and shamanism and, I don't know, sort of hippie talk. And I think we mentioned marijuana. In any case, there was this lady sitting in front of us who kind of looked, disapprovingly at our conversation. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but, at one point during a rest stop, I saw her on the payphone for a long time. In any case, our bus was suddenly stopped, and a military colonel and two men with light machine guns came straight back to our seat. They put the machine gun right at my head and said, "You're getting out of the bus." And they took us out. And if I didn't have a Canadian passport with a mention that my father was Canadian ambassador, that would have been it. They would have taken us off and tortured us. But because I had this ID, they went through all our stuff, and they stole whatever they want. And I asked them, but they didn't find, of course, any drugs or weapons, because we're just hippies, we're not terrorists, But I asked the man, why did you, chase after our bus? And she said, well, we got a phone call from a lady saying that there were terrorists transporting weapons and drugs down south. So this was this lady sitting in front of us who just decided to make an anonymous little phone call to turn us in. That sort of thing was going on all the time. And there was a lot of other nastiness. So for example, one thing they would do is they would surround a neighborhood, like a whole neighborhood, and then they would herd everybody into a certain central area, just at random. And then they would ask everyone there to show IDs, and they would grab people, just like that. And my brother saved several people by saying they're with him. But basically, this was a sort of regime they're carrying out. The problem is that they were extremely incompetent at managing the economy. And their propaganda, I mean, you go to movies here, they have these hypnotic sort of circles, and then they would have a propaganda thing. But it wasn't working when you had, hyperinflation and, things were falling apart. So they decided they needed to have a war. And at first they decided they were going to fight Chile because they thought, okay, this is someone that we can take on and beat, and then we can get all patriotic. And they were full of propaganda about how Chileans were evil and we had to declare war. And then the Pope intervened when they stopped doing that, and instead they invaded the Falkland Islands, thinking that since England was led by a woman, it would be a pushover. And of course, they lost that war. And then after that, public opinion completely stopped supporting them. They finally agreed to hand power over to a civilian government who promised not to press charges against these generals and by the way, my mother was at a cocktail party with these generals when she read a newspaper article about some leftists being arrested, and she said to this general, what's going to happen to them? And he says, torture has to be done in a rational, non-emotional manner. It has to be scientific. Otherwise you won't get the results you want. This is the sort of people we were dealing with. But and the other thing that was happening, of course, is that during that time, because they felt they're immune, this is the sort of people we were dealing with at the time. And this was also when the Bushes they had their big ranch in Paraguay, which is the old ranch they'd taken over from Adolf Hitler. And next door to that ranch was the Unification Church ranch, which was run by, holdouts from the Japanese military intelligence from World War II. And they were smuggling drugs and, preparing for a Nazi comeback. And, again, I saw this firsthand, and it was just so nasty. I couldn't believe it was happening. But what really surprised me was after 9/11 in the United States, this same group of people, and let's face it, they're fascists, they're Nazis, and they want absolute totalitarianism. They use this 9/11 as an excuse to impose the Patriot Act on the United States, which is essentially a Nazi fascist act. And the key, again, you got to remember, it's like, terrorists don't have human rights, they say, or leftists and communists don't have human rights, but they don't actually define what a terrorist is, or a leftist, or a communist is. That means they can take anyone they don't like, which is exactly what they were doing. But of course, it bounced back on them. Eventually, all the generals ended up in jail. Now, in the United States, what they're doing is they have this whole ICE business, where again, and if you look at what they did with the fake bombs in Argentina, well, they have a much more sophisticated version in the United States, where they stage these events designed to manipulate public opinion. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the really worst illegal immigrant murders were deliberately set to inflame public opinion. So they take some ugly black guy and have him do something horrible to a beautiful blonde woman, and then they would put that all over the internet so that people say, oh my God, we got to do something about this, illegals. And again, they don't actually have to show ID, these ICE agents. A lot of them are IDF terrorists, and they grab illegals, but they also grab people who are on the list of undesirables. And it's getting quite intense. So, for example, the amount of news sites that I followed that were reporting the truth are being taken down one by one. Jim Stone Freelance is long gone. Now the Rumor World News is long gone, and John Rappaport has died. They're trying desperately to make sure that anybody with the wrong opinion is not allowed to speak in public. And this is, and again, going back to Argentina, they would, just for having the wrong books on their bookshelves. So these are the kind of people we're dealing with. They are fascists, and we're dealing with some very dangerous criminals who are cornered and desperate. But, they're going to fail for the same reason that the Argentine military failed. For one thing, the economy is in a shambles. The other thing is that they lost the war in Iran. And this is a big loss because they've used up all their missiles, their Patriot missiles, their other defensive missiles. And they say, oh, well, we're going to, it's going to take a couple of years to rebuild them. Well, they can't rebuild them because they require rare earth metals, and China has cut off their rare earth metals. The other thing that's happening is that people are no longer laundering money, oil money, through their banks. They are now going through Chinese or other banks that are not affiliated with the Khazarian mafia. But again, these are fascists, and they want to create a society where they have absolute control. They've shown this in Ukraine, where they've murdered millions of people, mostly men, enslaved a woman, sold their children off to slavery, as hard as we can. But, I've seen this before, but I know that we've beaten the fascists once. We're going to beat them again because they are wrong. So that's the sort of thing that, personal experience I had that gave me warning what was going to happen to the United States. And it is happening now. And maybe if they had, managed to defeat the Iranian government, steal their oil, steal their gold, they could have kept things going. But right now they don't have oil, they don't have gold. All they've got is this fake money printing machine. And all they can do is try to, launder that money through the stock market. But it's just not working. I mean, look at that SpaceX IPO. Elon Musk has never gone beyond the Van Allen radiation belt. He cannot get out of the atmosphere, and yet it's predicated on, colonizing Mars and space that he's getting all this money, supposedly. And then he can't even build a robot, and he's having trouble buying robots from China to make it look like his robot business is going to do well. His car business is flailing, and yet somehow he's supposed to be the richest man on earth. He is part of that P2, P3 Roman group that wants to create a world dictatorship, and they are failing. And as I keep repeating, the rest of the world is standing by, ready to help the West. They're going to forgive all their debts and all their loans, and they're going to then offer, virtually unlimited funding to rebuild the infrastructure in the United States and Western Europe. We're just waiting for the final removal of this clan of Satan-worshipping fascists who were trying to turn this planet into a giant prison. And we still have a fight ahead of us, but I know from direct experience in Argentina that no matter how much you up the repression, it's not going to work, because you're going to run out of people to repress, and then you're going to start repressing members of your own group who will then turn against you. And that's exactly what's happening. So hang in there, folks. It shouldn't be much longer now. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today, and hopefully there'll be more news to report next time.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. In the video you were talking about last week, you said Scott Bessent now owes the Dragon family 200 tons of gold. I had thought the Dragon family had the gold to lend to the U.S. Treasury. How did that story change?
Well, they have gold, but more to the point was that during the 1930s and early into World War I, a lot of gold was lent to the United States from Asia, supposedly to finance, the fight against the Japanese militarism. And they were supposed to return that gold, and they didn't. They also issued countless U.S. government bonds backed by this gold. And what's happening now is that they're refusing to monetize or cash a bond that was given to the Dragon family based on gold that they took from the Dragon family. So the Dragon family is saying either you cash the bond or you give us back the 200 tons of gold that these bonds are backed by. And the Americans do not have the gold to give back. And they're refusing to use this money to help set up a new system that will be better than the one they have in place. So, the Dragon family still has lots of gold, but the point is they want the gold they already gave to be either paid for or given back. That's what's going on there.
Hi, Ben. Is Bessent's actual job to prop up these currencies by holding an interest rate gap between the Bank of Japan and the Fed in order to keep gold from skyrocketing?
No, what's happened was Japan was attacked again and threatened again to hand over more money to keep the whole U.S. show going. This whole idea of the United States bailing out Japan is a complete lie. It's just extortion because the United States doesn't have any money to give to Japan. But those threats are going to hit them back. There's going to be retaliation. If they try to hit Japan with their big earthquake weapon, then you'll see something happen to either the caldera around Mount Etna or to the La Palma Island in the South Atlantic. Either way, the idea that they can use weather or earthquake weapons to extort money from the rest of the world and Japan forever is not going to continue. Next question.
Hi, Ben. In regards to Washington State, what's actually happening there, and why did it seem like it's being targeted?
It's not just Washington State. Wherever they have a government that's not doing what they ask, or when some group, for example, maybe it's Boeing or Microsoft who are there aren't doing what they're being told, then there's some sort of attack to try to force the issue. But I don't know the details of that case.
Hi, Ben. In regards to Washington, D.C. now, it seems to have been under constant renovation for years. Who's paying for it? If it's the deep state, they clearly aren't going anywhere. And if it's the good guys, why sink more money into this area that we're considering to be satanic?
What happens is, the United States dollar is not a single monolith. Different groups make their own dollars. The Chinese have U.S. dollars, the Japanese have U.S. dollars, the Saudis and the Indonesians have U.S. dollars. What's happening is the U.S. dollars made by the United States since 2008, the Lehman shock, have not been accepted by the other major dollar holders. But they can use it inside the United States. They can use it to pump up the stock market. They can send checks to people's houses. And it's this money that they're able to use within the United States, and it's that printing press that keeps them in power. Next question.
Simon, we have our last question for today. In regards to Japan using U.S. dollars, do you think that at any point in time, Japan will just say, our currency is too weak, we can't keep going on like this, our purchasing power is awful, and just adopt the U.S. dollar to be used in Japan? Or do you see in the short to long-term future Japanese yen becoming strong again?
I'm not a currency speculator, but clearly the reason why the yen is weak is because the Bank of Japan, which is not owned by Japanese, it's owned by the Rothschilds, is being forced to print money out and hand it to these international banks who then use it to speculate elsewhere. So the yen is weak because money is being taken out of Japan. And the key, which I keep telling the Japanese they have to do, is to nationalize the Bank of Japan. And that's going to happen, I guarantee you. All right, well, once summer's over, I think a lot's going to start happening. So,
Restored Republic via GCR update. Judy note, we are 24 hours away from an event that will change the world forever. BRICS, Nizar Jazara and Quantum Financial System, QFS, we're sending shockwaves through the deep state. With gold-backed currencies and secure Q phones, the old order is collapsing. Prepare for a revolution. Carolyn Bessette Kennedy on Telegram. On Wednesday 12th of August, 2026, President Trump gave the green light, activated the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, ordered the global military alliance to take over the mainstream fake news media and make mass arrests. Be prepared for worldwide emergency alerts, blackouts and 10 days of communication darkness. Why? The takeover of American liberties had been building since the end of the Civil War when foreign interests took over America's tax system. Although, the real takeover began in earnest in 2009 when President Obama was fraudulently elected into office. Obama immediately and quietly established a shadow globalist deep state cabal government of radicals to sabotage the American people and their constitution. The Obama Foundation and DNC network of criminals consisted of over 32,000 radicals, with 25,000 more in training. An Obama executive order turned 8,000 civilian generals into a stay-behind army and replaced 6,000 plus of them with Obama deep state loyalists. Radicals were embedded all over the country for the purpose of causing chaos. Supporting them were leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities. All have been working with the Chinese Communist Party, to which now the Democratic Party, using Democratic Socialists of America members, pledged their allegiance to the CCP and the takeover of America. Interpol and the Global Military Alliance have executed simultaneous raids on Central Intelligence black site archives, recovering decades of hidden financial records, blackmail vaults and direct order logs, exposing the cabal's global financial manipulation. Deep within subterranean command nodes, military intelligence teams have successfully extracted the master cryptographic keys to global surveillance networks, permanently severing the communication lines of shadow directorates. Simultaneous tactical incursions target deep underwater fiber optic repeaters and orbital relay stations, cutting off the clandestine data loops utilized by international syndicates for market manipulation and coordinate sharing. Special operations teams have confiscated multi-billion-dollar offshore gold reserves and digital asset vaults tied to compromised sovereign wealth funds. Forensic accounting units secure multi-trillion-dollar corporate ledgers hidden inside sovereign tax havens, mapping out the exact capital flows that funded decades of covert geopolitical engineering. There have been mass detentions of senior international corporate directors and financial technocrats who were implicated in designing global supply chain bottlenecks and artificial scarcity networks that served the cabal. Compromised executive boards and corrupt political figures were being transferred directly to secure facilities including Gitmo. Over 100,000 military tribunal prosecutors and investigators have been deployed across secure jurisdictions to process millions of pages of recovered digital evidence and witness depositions. Evidence has been obtained in many ways. Emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to the exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London and New York are under direct audit as authorities unend decades of illicit funding used to sustain global cabal operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates and pharmaceutical fronts were facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system was accelerating, backed by asset-based manipulation. Old banking rails were being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts, EBS alerts, were scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, Transaction ledgers and digital forensics will be released globally and simultaneously. This was the systemic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity was collapsing. There may come a moment when the signal becomes quiet. A moment when the old internet does not answer the way it used to. A moment when platforms slow down, messages fail, websites disappear, banking apps freeze, payment rails become unstable, and the public begins asking the same question at the same time: what is happening? This is the moment people must remember one thing clearly: do not panic. When the signal goes dark, fear will try to speak first. Confusion will move quickly. Screenshots will spread. Rumors will multiply. Fake accounts will appear. Scammers will pretend to have answers. Some will claim they can restore access. Some will ask for wallet information. Some will ask for passwords, seed phrases, private keys, documents, or payments. That is why discipline matters. The darkness of a signal does not mean the end. Sometimes it means the old network is being exposed. Sometimes it means weak systems are failing under pressure. Sometimes it means the final cracks are becoming visible before a stronger structure can rise. The people must understand the difference between collapse and transition. Collapse is uncontrolled. Transition is protected. Collapse leaves people lost. Transition requires patience, order, and calm while the old structure is cleared and the new road is prepared. We, the white hats, are not here to create fear. We are here to prepare the people for the moment when confusion tries to take control. If the signal goes dark, remain calm. Protect your accounts. Protect your family. Keep your devices secure. Do not click unknown links. Do not trust random messages. Do not give access to anyone claiming to be support. Do not act from panic. The loudest voices during darkness are not always the safest voices. This is why preparation must come before the moment arrives. Save official links. Know where to look. Follow only trusted sources. Keep important information backed up. Keep your communication calm and direct. Help your family understand that panic is not protection. Fear is not wisdom. Confusion is not truth. The old internet was never built to carry the future that is coming. It was built on weak passwords, exposed identities, fragile platforms, centralized control, hidden tracking, data harvesting, and digital gates that can be closed without warning. A new era requires more. It requires quantum-safe protection, verified access, secure identity, cleaner communication, stronger financial rails, systems that protect the people instead of collecting, limiting, and manipulating them. That is why the signal may need to go dark before the new connection becomes visible. Not as punishment, not as defeat, but as the final proof that the old network could not protect what comes next. When that moment comes, many will not understand it at first. They will see silence and call it failure. They will see darkness and call it danger. They will see disruption and believe the road has ended. But those who are prepared will understand. The signal going dark is not always the end of communication. Sometimes it is the pause between two worlds, the old one losing power and the new one preparing to come online. If the signal goes dark, do not follow panic. Follow discipline. Protect your family. Protect your access. Protect your information. Protect your peace. Share it with your friends, your family, and every patriot who understands that the strongest people are not those who panic first, but those who stay calm when the world becomes quiet. The old signal may go dark. But darkness is not the final message. It is the silence before the new connection. Global currency reset. On Tuesday, August 11, 2026, reports from Australia said bondholders were being funded, while other sources said bondholders were promised liquidation of their funds by Thursday 12, August 13, 2026. Other sources claim that on Friday 14, August 15, 2026, Tier 4B, US, the Internet Group, would be notified to set redemption/exchange appointments. The Iraqi parliament was expected to release their new dinar rate by Saturday 14 August. On Tuesday, September 1, 2026, the new gold-backed global financial system will be active and redemption centers will be open worldwide in 209 nations. Tuesday, August 11, 2026, Bruce, two sources in Canada were able to do exchanges today at one bank but at lower rates. Confirmed from banking source in Canada, exchanges were taking place in India, Indonesia, and Pakistan. A military source believes Tier 4B will get notifications for Thursday or Friday 13. 14th of August, and exchange appointments would be made for free or Saturday 15th of August. G. What we think we know as of Thursday, August 13, 2026 : Wednesday 12th of August. Base CEO drops a bombshell. Big banks are trying to block pro-crypto policies. They're working overtime to control the narrative and slow down adoption. This is a wake-up call for the crypto community. Wednesday 12th of August. 2026 Follow the money. 11 corporations control 90% of consumer goods. The brands compete. The owners don't. A small number of investment giants hold major stakes across much of the corporate world. The more you look, the more the illusion of choice begins to fade. Wednesday 12th of August. 2026 U.S. debt clock. Breaking news: $40 trillion alarm. U.S. debt clock blows past the historic mark as America's debt train isn't stopping. U.S. debt clock projects America's national debt above $40.1 trillion as official Treasury figures close in on the historic $40 trillion mark. See the staggering debt per taxpayer numbers and why America's exploding debt is becoming an urgent issue for Trump, Congress and the American people. America's debt warning is becoming impossible to ignore. The U.S. debt clock is now projecting national debt above $40 trillion, with the live display at approximately $40.11 trillion. The U.S. debt clock states the figure is algorithmically projected from latest Treasury data. The live $40.11 trillion should not be confused with the latest official Treasury balance. As of August 10, 2026, the latest Treasury-based figure stood at approximately $39.92 trillion. America is extraordinarily close to a $40 trillion national debt, and the U.S. debt clock's real-time projection has already crossed that psychological line. Alongside the projected $40.11 trillion, the clock showed debt per person of approximately $119,735, debt per taxpayer of approximately $286,508, and interest per day of approximately $3.8 billion. These are U.S. debt clock calculations, not official balances. They illustrate the extraordinary scale of federal indebtedness. Washington continues to carry an enormous and growing debt burden. President Donald Trump inherited an enormous federal debt burden when he returned to the White House, but his administration and the current Congress now confront the fundamental responsibility: what will they do from this point forward? That is where an America First fiscal argument becomes genuinely pro-people. Ordinary Americans do not benefit from Washington pointing backward while the debt counter climbs. The real question is whether Washington can finally change its direction. The debt train has moved through Republican and Democratic administrations for decades. Trump and the current Congress now hold responsibility for decisions on their watch. For the American people, the question is simpler than partisan blame: who is prepared to confront the spending, deficits, interest costs and pressures that keep pushing the number higher? The warning from the U.S. debt clock is already staring America in the face. The number is getting bigger. The interest bill is growing. And the American people deserve a serious plan to change the trajectory. Wednesday 12th of August. 2026 Did you know? John D. Rockefeller's secret pact describes, with chilling coldness, an alleged plan for total domination over humanity. Here are the most shocking phrases that emerged from it. 7. We will make them kill each other when it suits us. We will keep them separated from unity by dogmas and religion. 8. We will control all aspects of their lives and tell them what to think and how. We will guide them gently and softly, letting them believe they are guiding themselves. 9. The hatred will be so great that even the smartest among them will not see the truth. 10. When they rise up against us, we will crush them like insects, for they are less than that. 11. Oh yes, the illusion of freedom will be so grand that they will never know they are our slaves. 12. This reality will be their prison. They will live in self-deception. 13. But if they ever discover that they are our equals, we will perish then. That, they must never know. Wednesday 12th of August. 2026 Barack Obama's Patriot Purge in the U.S. government that created a secret deep state stay-behind army, Edward Snowden on Telegram. This is the origin of the Obama-era deep state that's actively undermining Trump, his administration, and America itself. Even though this has deep intelligence ties, this is not the CIA, the FBI, or the NSA. This is another piece of the operation. This is the SES. The Senior Executive Service, created under Carter, and weaponized under Obama. In December 2015, one single executive order turned 8,000 civilian generals into a stay-behind army. replaced 6,000 plus of them with Obama deep state loyalists. Embedding this army in every single agency: Department of Education, 86, Department of Housing and Urban Development, 115, Department of Air Force, 182, Department of Labor, 200, Department of State, 204, Department of Transportation, 231, Department of Interior, 258, Department of the Army, 261, Department of the Navy, 326, Department of Veteran Affairs, 357, Department of Agriculture, 361, Department of Commerce, 425, Department of Treasury, 458, Department of Health and Human Services, 468, Department of War, 478, Department of Energy, 490, Department of Homeland Security, 639, Department of Justice, 821, all other agencies/non-cabinet, 1,796. These are just the ones we know of. There are more. Obama then gutted the military. 197 flag officers, 9 commanding generals, nuclear commanders, along with thousands of other non-commanding officers. Remember Benghazi? Carter Ham and Chuck J. Ouellette. Fired for trying to save Americans during the horrific Benghazi attack, overseen by Hillary Clinton. Obama wasn't the boss. He was the front man. The SES is the real deep state, the traitorous unelected force, loyal to Obama and other globalist scumbags who are still running the show and embedded in the Trump administration, under Trump, but actively working against him. Next time you decide to think everything is so easy, or you think everything can be fixed at the flick of a pen, think again. You have no idea what we are truly up against, but in the end, we will be victorious, because the will and passion inside American patriots, and the truth itself, will always prevail. Judgment is on its way, and it won't be pretty. They've branded me a traitor. History will call me a hero. Word from valid military sources was that on Monday, August 10, 2026, the Global Military Alliance initiated full seizure of the mainstream media broadcasting networks and corporate news headquarters. The transition to worldwide martial law was now 100% complete. The military had complete oversight of critical infrastructure and the old cabal power structure was unable to recover or communicate. Now all secure broadcast channels were on standby for the imminent broadcast of documentary archives and prosecution logs across all intercepted networks. There was a full deactivation of global satellite communication backbones used by the corporate media and deep state command cells. All was in preparation for implementation of the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS. Interpol and the Global Military Command have executed simultaneous raids on Central Intelligence black site archives, recovering decades of hidden financial records, blackmail vaults and direct order logs. In the process, the Global Military Alliance exposed direct funding trails to the cabal's global financial manipulation campaigns. The Emergency Special Operations Teams confiscated multi-billion-dollar offshore gold reserves and digital asset vaults tied to compromised sovereign wealth funds. Space Force defense units have neutralized foreign satellite infrastructure used by elite cabal networks for encrypted command and control operations. A massive military sweep across elite private islands and subterranean facility networks has confirmed a complete neutralization of rogue operations and underground human logistics nodes. International shipping hubs and port authorities have been placed under strict military quarantine in order to prevent high-profile elites from escaping via private maritime fleets and diplomatic aircraft. Over 80,000 military police and special operations units have been deployed across major financial and political capitals in order to secure critical infrastructure during the ongoing global transition. Allied command structures have confirmed that the asset recovery and trials infrastructure was operating at full capacity. There have been mass detentions of senior international corporate directors and financial technocrats who were implicated in designing global supply chain bottlenecks and artificial scarcity networks. Compromised executive boards and corrupt political figures were being transferred directly to secure facilities. Over 100,000 military tribunal prosecutors and investigators have been deployed across secure jurisdictions to process millions of pages of recovered digital evidence and witness depositions. Evidence has been obtained in many ways. Deep within subterranean command nodes, military intelligence teams have successfully extracted the master cryptographic keys to global surveillance networks, permanently severing the communication lines of shadow directorates. Simultaneous tactical incursions target deep underwater fiber optic repeaters and orbital relay stations, cutting off the clandestine data loops utilized by international syndicates for market manipulation and coordinate sharing. Forensic accounting units secure multi-trillion-dollar corporate ledgers hidden inside sovereign tax havens, mapping out the exact capital flows that funded decades of covert geopolitical engineering. Autonomous defense grids have activated across major continental sectors to enforce absolute airspace sovereignty, grounding all unregistered corporate aircraft and intercepting maritime vessels attempting unauthorized transit. The transition to distributed local governance and hard asset monetary settlement was now enforced by joint task forces that have replaced centralized compliance monopolies. Evidence vaults containing classified medical patents, suppressed energy designs and advanced propulsion schematics are preparing for public release via decentralized quantum nodes. The architecture of control has been permanently dismantled. The final phases of the systemic restructuring were unfolding. The old paradigm was gone. Emergency quantum broadcast networks were prepared to stream unedited evidence logs and witness testimonies across all intercepted channels worldwide. It was recommended that you maintain secure communications and monitor verified channels for live uptime. B. What we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now we're supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. 2s. August 11, 2026. In connection with the global currency reset, emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. On 2s. September 1, 2026. The quantum financial system officially moves from testing to live global sync. Redemption centers open for the general public. Major banking grids will begin quiet shutdown procedures as transactions reroute through the QFS network. The Federal Reserve, IMF, and SWIFT systems will freeze cross-border operations while asset-backed settlements activate in real time. On Sunday 22nd of November, 2026, the new ISO 20022 international banking standards will go into full effect on this 63rd anniversary of the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy, November 22, 1963. Mid-February 2027, under Trump's Patriot Wealth Directive, restitution and reparation, R&R, payouts will begin mid-February, direct gold-backed compensation for IRS fraud, vaccine injury, banking theft, and more. D. Global currency reset, Judy note, on 2s. August 11, 2026. Reports from Australia said bondholders were being funded, while other sources said bondholders were promised liquidation of their funds by Thursday 12, August 13, 2026. Other sources claim that on Friday Sat. 14, August 15, 2026 Tier 4B, US, the Internet Group, would be notified to set redemption/exchange appointments. The Iraqi parliament was expected to release their new dinar rate by Saturday 14 August. On 2s. September 1, 2026. The new gold-backed global financial system will be active and redemption centers will be open worldwide in 209 nations. 2s. August 11, 2026. Bruce, the big call, redemption center leaders went in yesterday and today. 2s. August 11, 2026, and we're expecting to receive emails that will give them a timeline. 2 sources in Canada were able to do exchanges today at one bank but at lower rates. Confirmed from banking source in Canada, exchanges were taking place in India, Indonesia and Pakistan. A military source believes Tier 4B will get notifications for Thursday or Friday 14th of August and exchange appointments would be made for free or Saturday 15th of August. 2s. August 11, 2026. Zimcom. No projects equals $15 million regardless of holdings. With projects equals first 2 ZIM notes pays at a 1-to-1, then up to $25 million per 100 trillion ZIM notes after that for up to 3,100 trillion ZIM notes. Any more payout after that requires a return visit for further negotiation. E2s. August 11, 2026. QFS goes live soon. The fiat system's final days have begun. Redemption centers to activate on September 1, 2026. The countdown has started. The fiat system is crumbling no matter how much they lie. Starting September 1, 2026, redemption centers will go fully live under military protection and begin processing gold-backed transactions through the quantum financial system. This won't be theory. It will be reality. The old financial system will collapse before the eyes of the world and the cabal won't be able to stop it. Global military units led by Trump's alliance will soon begin massive raids targeting elite-controlled vaults, stolen gold, off-ledger assets, ritual finance archives. All of it will be seized and redirected into the QFS using advanced light intelligence tech. These hidden reserves are not inside banks. They lie beneath mountains, Vatican catacombs, and abandoned NATO bases. The illusion of elite financial control is about to be destroyed. If you still have funds in traditional banks, prepare. Over 12,000 branches are expected to shut down in the weeks ahead. Not restructured. Not downsized. Fully disconnected from the QFS grid. The dollar will soon be worthless. Your only access to sovereign wealth will be through redemption centers where you must be verified, scanned, and approved to receive gold-backed USTNs. The cabal, sensing the end, is expected to launch final attacks. EMPs, bioweapons, digital sabotage. A classified plan known as Last Breath is already circulating, including media blackouts, false flags, and infrastructure disruption. But they will fail. Space Force is on standby to intercept. On twos. September 1, 2026, the transition begins. Tier 4B Nizar Jazara on Telegram, on twos. September 1, 2026, the quantum financial system officially moves from testing to live global sync. Major banking grids will begin quiet shutdown procedures as transactions reroute through the QFS network. The Federal Reserve, IMF, and SWIFT systems will freeze cross-border operations while asset-backed settlements activate in real time. Governments will start recalibrating national ledgers to gold-based reserves. Key nations, the US, Netherlands, India, Brazil, and Japan, are confirmed for first-wave integration. Encrypted broadcasts will announce the new digital-to-physical conversion standard. Expect market volatility, temporary outages, and data synchronization delays. This is the crossover point. G2s. August 11, 2026 National Emergency. Trump ignites Nizar payouts, $3.5 trillion in seized elite funds surging to verified patriots as globalists launch desperate sabotage to stop the regime. On Sunday 9 August, 2026 the Nizar storm broke wide open. The old fiat slave system began collapsing in real time as Trump unleashed the greatest wealth transfer in history. Trillions clawed from the deep state's black vaults were flooding into the quantum financial system, QFS, rerouting straight to awakened Americans. The cabal is panicking, hammering servers, jamming routes, and screaming through their fake news puppets, but they can't stop what's already in motion. Trump flipped the switch on Nizar at Tier 1 in late December 2025, activating it silently over the holidays while the world slept. No parades, no pressers, just cold, hard execution. The QFS is live, identities syncing, funds moving through military-secured channels. Over $3.5 trillion in stolen elite wealth is being redistributed, CIA off-ledger slush funds, human trafficking empires hidden in NGO shells, rigged election interference cash from 2020 and 2022, big pharma extortion billions, endless war profiteering loot, all seized and reassigned. These assets blast through 14 fortified nodes across US and European military bases, encrypted, decentralized, untouchable by the Fed, IMF, or any banker vampire. Redemption is rolling in stealth waves. Early verified accounts are lighting up in pre-release mode. But the globalists are fighting dirty, server attacks, routing blocks, disinformation floods to breed down and delay. Timelines stretched, expect major triggers firing early to mid-September 2026, with final Tier 1 waves pushing into March if the resistance drags on. The next 30 to 40 days are do or die. Once Tier 1 seals, the door slams shut forever. Elites are bleeding out. $380 billion already vaporized from offshore hideouts, BlackRock and Vanguard empires gutted over crooked contracts, European pension funds hemorrhaging, luxury properties dumped in panic sales. They're cornered, furious, lashing out because their entire parasitic empire is crumbling. But the QFS holds strong, military-grade armor, automated, unstoppable. Payouts push forward for the verified patriots first in line. This is the hammer drop Trump promised. No more debt slavery, no more cabal control. White hats dominate the battlefield, arrests are imminent, the republic rises from the ashes. The Great Awakening isn't coming, it's here, redistributing the spoils of war back to we the people. Bank glitches will spike in February as the old matrix fractures. Stay vigilant, stay offline where it counts, watch the signs, the storm peaks now. The deep state knows it's over. Their missile blackmail, their rigged elections, their endless grift, all ending under Trump's iron will. We're taking it all back, crushing the new world order, firing up the golden age. Trust the plan. The wealth is flowing, the reset is real, victory is locked in. WWG1. The cabal trembles, the patriots rise. This video is reposted from the blog, erdailyblog.com. H2s. August 11, 2026 Global financial reset and asset seizure underway following recent tribunal disclosures. Nizar and Jazara connected on Telegram. Emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London and New York are under direct audit as authorities unwind decades of illicit funding used to sustain global operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates and pharmaceutical fronts are facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system is accelerating, backed by asset-backed currencies designed to eliminate debt-based manipulation. Old banking rails are being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts are scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, transaction ledgers and digital forensics will be released simultaneously globally to ensure full transparency. This is the systemic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity is collapsing. Stay informed and verify all updates through secure channels. I2s. August 11, 2026 The Treasury official WHO watched the old system die. What happened on August 10? I spent 19 years inside the U.S. Treasury Department. I watched the Federal Reserve operate. I watched the SWIFT system process trillions. I watched the fiat currency machine run the world. On August 10, 2026, at 6:47 EST, I watched it begin to collapse. Not a crash. Not a panic. A controlled demolition. Planned. Authorized. Executed. The global currency reset is not coming. It is happening. Right now. Today. Here is what the mainstream financial media will never tell you. The quantum financial system went live on Friday, August 7, 2026, at 3:17 GMT. The network glitches that hit 3 continents simultaneously that morning were not technical failures. They were the old SWIFT nodes being disconnected one by one. The banks blamed scheduled maintenance. They were lying. I reviewed the internal Treasury briefing from August 9. The document is marked TS/SCI. It describes the transition in clinical language. But what it means is this: 209 nations have agreed to the new system. 51 currencies are being revalued. The debt-based fiat architecture that enslaved humanity for 110 years is being dismantled. The Clarity Act hearing on August 10 at 10 a.m. EST was not about cryptocurrency regulation. It was the public face of a private transition that has already happened. Why now? Because the arrests changed everything. When Operation Final Accounting removed 847 operatives from the financial system's command structure, the deep state lost the ability to block the transition. The families who hold foreign currency are not waiting for a future event. The event is now. Tier 4B is not a theory. It is a process. And that process began this week. I was in the building when the old systems started dying. I watched 110 years of financial control begin to unravel in a single morning. September is when the public finds out. The restoration was always the plan. K2s. August 11, 2026 Mass arrests, detentions, evidence gathering. Global Military Alliance secures mainframe access to Central Intelligence and Deep State data servers, exposing direct funding trails to global manipulation campaigns. Emergency Special Operations teams confiscate multi-billion-dollar offshore gold reserves and digital asset vaults tied to compromised sovereign wealth funds. Mass detentions of senior international corporate directors and financial technocrats implicated in designing global supply chain bottlenecks and artificial scarcity networks. Space Force defense units neutralize foreign satellite infrastructure used by elite cabal networks for encrypted command and control operations. Over 100,000 military tribunal prosecutors and investigators deployed across secure jurisdictions to process millions of pages of recovered digital evidence and witness depositions. Tuesday, August 11, 2026 complete shutdown of compromised SWIFT financial messaging nodes and commercial banking verification gateway. Global command structures confirm that the transition to direct military oversight of critical infrastructure is 100% complete. The old power structure is unable to recover or communicate. All secure channels are on standby for the imminent broadcast of documentary archives and prosecution logs across all intercepted networks. The final systemic dismantling of the elite class is reaching its culmination. Maintain operational awareness and monitor verified disclosure feeds. What we think we know as of Wednesday, 12th of August, 2026, Tuesday, August 11, 2026, Supreme Court breaking, Justice Alito is staying, Trump celebrates, great news for our country. Tuesday, August 11, 2026, explosive report, Mamdani video goes viral, his own words about identity and political power ignite a firestorm. Tuesday, August 11, 2026 XRP and the National Quantum Initiative Act, the Financial Revolution Uncovered, Breaking the Chains of Financial Control, XRP, Nizar and Jazara, QFS 3.0, and the National Quantum Initiative Act. For centuries, governments and financial elites have used money as a means of control, perpetuating cycles of debt and economic instability. The very monetary systems we've depended on have acted as tools of manipulation, limiting freedom and opportunity for individuals worldwide. But imagine a paradigm shift, a revolutionary financial framework capable of dismantling these chains and fostering global prosperity. Enter the quantum financial system, QFS, an AI-driven, asset-backed financial model that seeks to transform the global economy. Unlike the current fiat-based system, susceptible to manipulation by central banks and governments, the QFS is grounded in tangible assets like gold, platinum, and silver. It offers a secure, transparent, and incorruptible alternative, aimed at eradicating the vulnerabilities of the paper-based monetary system. The QFS operates in alignment with the National Quantum Initiative Act, a legislative push to advance quantum technologies critical for powering this groundbreaking financial infrastructure. In tandem with this initiative, concepts like Nizar and Jazara and digital currencies such as Ripple's XRP are poised to usher in an era of unprecedented financial freedom and fairness. The Quantum Financial System, QFS. The QFS marks a monumental departure from traditional banking and fiat currencies, which derive their value solely from government declarations. Under the current system, inflation, debt, and economic crises are rampant, affecting individuals and entire nations. The QFS proposes a solution, anchoring the monetary system to real, tangible assets. By backing the system with gold, platinum, and silver, the QFS ensures stability and prevents governments from inflating currency by printing money arbitrarily. This asset-backed approach protects individuals and businesses from the devastating consequences of financial mismanagement. Additionally, the QFS integrates artificial intelligence, AI, to guarantee transparency, accountability, and incorruptibility. Transactions are verified in real time, enabling secure and instantaneous cross-border payments while eliminating human errors and opportunities for corruption. This AI-powered transparency represents a true revolution in the global financial landscape. XRP, the bridge currency of the QFS. Central to the QFS's functionality is Ripple's XRP, a digital asset designed to revolutionize international payments. Ripple has been a pioneer in the cryptocurrency sector, focusing on reducing costs and delays associated with cross-border money transfers. XRP's scalability, speed, and security make it an ideal fit for the demands of the QFS, which will operate globally and continuously. Ripple's XRP ledger can process vast volumes of transactions almost instantaneously, ensuring the QFS remains efficient and effective. As the world transitions away from fiat currencies, XRP is well suited to act as a bridge currency, facilitating seamless exchanges between different asset-backed currencies within the QFS ecosystem. Moreover, Ripple's compliance with ISO 20022, the international standard for financial messaging, positions XRP as a key player in the QFS. This alignment ensures smooth integration into the evolving global financial infrastructure, where standardization and interoperability are becoming increasingly critical. The dominoes are falling. Every major historical event of the last 2 centuries was scripted by the same hidden hand to centralize power: the Titanic, 1912, not an accident, but the strategic elimination of prominent opponents to the creation of the Federal Reserve. The Bolshevik Revolution, 1917, funded entirely by Wall Street bankers to overthrow the Russian Tsar and establish a totalitarian template for global control. Operation Paperclip and Mockingbird, importing high-ranking Nazi scientists and intelligence operatives directly into the Pentagon, NASA, and mainstream media to weaponize psychological warfare against the American public. The Great Awakening cannot be stopped. The deep state operators are in a state of absolute panic. Their panic is visible in every desperate mainstream media narrative, every forced digital ID push, and every engineered crisis designed to distract the masses. They are cornered, the Vatican financial records are open, the trafficking tunnels beneath major global capitals have been mapped and targeted. The sovereign human collective is waking up to the frequency of love, truth, and unity. The false light is dying. The true organic light of creation is returning to reclaim this planet. Hold the frequency. Trust the plan. The storm is here.
I have to admit, looks very, very dystopian right now, and a lot of people are despairing, wondering when is this horror show going to end. And there is a lot that is going on behind the scenes that I cannot talk about, but let's just see if we start, some very prominent people start. But there is a lot of fighting going on behind the scenes. And in a sign that this horror show is going to end, we have seen the Epstein files dumped. For example, if you look at this one, I was told by military intelligence this is Stephen Colbert with a young child, and that is, a very sanitized video. They haven't released the ones, but they exist because that's how these people operate, and this is, beyond any doubt. And we're now also starting to get from the Department of Justice document release testimony about the fake Donald Trump. Remember, the real Donald Trump is 6'3" tall or 190 centimeters, appears with Melania. He has not been seen since June. And this Trump does not have skeletons in his closet, but they've had a fake Trump for a long time, and this one does. And that's coming out, as you can see from these two videos. A lot more is going to come out, I guarantee you. I've been told by, members of the British royal family, this is all going to come out. And you can tell there are signs that it really is ending. For example, Russian intelligence is reporting that all the members of the Ukrainian government have sent their money and families overseas, and they're asking various embassies for shelter and protection because they know they're not going to be able to stay in Ukraine. But there's basically nowhere on earth they're going to be able to go. Now, the other thing that's happening is the government of Israel is offering a huge amounts of money to airlines to start direct flights from Tel Aviv to Argentina. This means a lot of prominent Israelis are hoping to flee to Argentina, and they don't want the plane stopping at another country on the way because they know they'll get arrested. They think that the 1,000 miles of coastline they bought in Patagonia and the underground facilities there will allow them to escape justice. But no, there's nowhere on earth these people are going to be able to hide. We're going to go after them. We're going to make sure it's finished. And at the same time, these people are so desperate, they're cracking down in ways that are just hard to imagine. For example, watch this video of someone being arrested in the UK for calling someone a carpet muncher. This is a sign of a failed regime. When they are, arresting people for saying something like carpet muncher, but they're not arresting people for torture. There's something very wrong, and this is not going to last. But if you are in the military, you need to take personal action. We are allowed to arrest these people. Any one of us, anyone watching there, if you see one of these people on the street, in public, you're allowed to make a citizen's arrest. And that can be proven in any court. And if they resist arrest, you're allowed to use necessary force. Now, another sign that this really is going to end this time is that a Dutch court has ordered Alec Borda of Pfizer and Bill Gates to testify about. This is important because the International Court of Justice is in Holland and the military will enforce their rulings. So we really are going to go after these people. Now, the other thing, of course, is we need to do something about this reality TV show that is pretending to be the U.S. government. I was contacted by Dr. William Mount. I haven't heard from him in a while, but he told me that Washington, D.C. has been abandoned and the entire horror show you're watching, the so-called Trump government, is run out of Florida. They're not going to last much longer, but it would be nice to send special forces into Mar-a-Lago and arrest these actors and secret handlers like Leo Zagami and put an end to this show. And I know the P3 and the P2 Freemasons are getting desperate because they've been sending me emails or saying that threatening nuclear war. That means they've run out of cards. Their fake dollar machine is not working. Their control of the narrative, even though they're censoring like I've never seen before, they've shut down so many sites and they arrested military commentators. But it's not going to be enough. There's too many of us, and this is not going to be allowed to continue. And the censorship is also covering up genocides in places like Sudan, where the United Arab Emirates, which is another rogue state that needs to be dealt with, and for some reason people don't want to talk about it, but it has to be talked about. It's not just Gaza. Okay, these criminals have to have nowhere on earth to shelter, and the Russians and the Chinese need to enforce this. Of course, Russia has its own problem. Their government is heavily infiltrated by Chabad and the Satanists, and they need to carry out a purge of their own. And one name I'd like to suggest is Kirill Dmitriev, the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund. His public statements make it clear he's a compromised Chabad agent, and I would recommend to the Russians that they take him in for questioning. But in any case, the other thing that's happening is that there's been a very blatant attempt to suppress Christianity in the United States, and the so-called White House now does not allow a Christmas tree, but they do have a menorah, and they celebrate Hanukkah, which is commemorates a genocide, and that's wrong. And the real Jewish people, need to do something about that, and they will. The Jewish people are about to be liberated from this satanic cult that has taken over their leadership. And now I've also been told by Mossad agents that the massacre at Bondi Beach in Australia was carried out. The people who did it, their last name was Cohen. They're Mossad agents, so they can justify a crackdown on anti-Semitism, which is really anti-Satanism. Okay, it's nothing to do with Jews. But people are very, very angry, and even though it's not being reported, the governments in Europe are falling. Take a look at these demonstrations in Holland, for example. That sort of thing is being seen not just in Holland, but all over Europe. The farmers are shutting down governments because the governments have been trying to put farmers out of business so that they can create a starvation crisis to control the food supply. But it's simply not going to work. So in the new year, in 2026, we hope we're going to do everything possible, and I personally am going to take personal action in ways that I can here in Japan. And I've been in touch with police and military types and political types, and the government of Takaichi Sanae is not going to be allowed to last because she's been trying to give Japanese tax money to the openly Nazi, and that has marked her as no good. So something will happen here. Again, we can't talk about all the details, but we all need to take action. Enough is enough. The horror show has to end. Let me just check my notes, see if there's anything else.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. As you wrote in this week's report, Japan is also on the warpath. I hope Japan gains independence from the U.S. and nationalizes the BOJ, but war is bad. Please provide more information that you can tell us on how the war in Japan will play out to your expectations.
Well, Japan is saying now openly that they have to have their own nuclear weapons. And the reason why they're saying this is because the Khazarian mafia has been trying to get money from the Chinese by selling Japan to them. But Japan has always been an independent country, and they realize that they're going to have to fight for their own independence. But what's going to happen is that there's going to have to be some kind of negotiations because the situation that has existed since the end of World War II is no longer tenable. The Korean Peninsula needs to be united. Taiwan and China need to be reunited in a way that gives Taiwan real power in China. And all these artificial divisions getting the Asians to fight each other must be ended. So there will be big changes because the current structure is untenable. And I believe the Japanese government will become very friendly with North Korea in the new year. But there's not going to be any major war. I've talked to people in the societies, Asian secret societies. They say there may be some small fighting, but no all-out war. Next question.
Hi, Ben. There was no autopsy report or death certificate yet for Charlie Kirk, but it is seemingly illegal to fake a death certificate. Do you think that Charlie Kirk is actually dead? And what about that comments that Kash Patel made about seeing Charlie Kirk in Valhalla? Kash certainly isn't a Viking, and it turns out there is an island named Valhalla in St. George Island, Florida.
Look, the Charlie Kirk thing is just so fake that I've kind of tuned out because they're trying to keep our eyeballs on this show with Erica Turk and then these events, and they're trying to distract us. But as far as Kash Patel is concerned, he's clearly not being either compromised or replaced by a fake because he's now opposed to releasing the Trump files. Now he says that America's number one priority should be Israel. Uh, Kash Patel needs to be arrested, pure and simple, along with Pam Bondi. And it's going to have to be the people within the Justice Department, FBI, to do that. And they're legally entitled because they have broken the law and need to be arrested. That's what we need to do. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Any chance you can comment further on the sharp rise in prices of metals and what it means for fiat currencies and the global financial system? Also, do you concur with Rick Ware and others that the sharp rise in silver and platinum indicate shortages in physical metal and that the world is running out of these metals relative to demand? Do you see the U.S. and other countries going digital or back to gold and silver standard, or somehow a combination of both?
Well, my understanding is that at the very highest levels of global finance, they don't accept money. They only accept precious metals. And what's happened is the West has run out of its own gold stocks. There are multiple reports that the vaults in Switzerland are empty. And but the thing people need to understand is that um, there is lots and lots of gold. I was contacted by an Iranian source who said they just discovered. Again, I'm just telling you the number they told me. It's kind of mind-boggling, but 61 million tons of gold. But you see, most of the gold has been blacklisted by the Western financial system because if they monetize it, then they lose control over the international financial system. So most of that gold is blacklisted. So what's happening is the people who control the Western financial printing press have jacked up the price of gold that they accept in order to try to lure people into selling their jewelry and stuff, so they can have more gold to hand over to the Asians. But uh, you know, they're not going to get enough, so they're going to keep trying to jack up the price. And I don't think it's too late to buy gold. I think you should do it if you can. Same with silver and platinum and copper. anything real. Basically, buy stuff that actually exists as soon as you can, because some kind of financial black swan is going to happen for sure. Next question.
Hi, Ben. To say the Venezuela conflict for us is just to get their oil, in my opinion, is quite naive. We don't need their oil, but there is an embargo to keep them from sending it to China. The narco-terrorist, communist dictator, and his communist predecessor ruined the most prosperous Latin American country. They have turned it into a dangerous. Trump wants the people there to benefit from their vast oil reserves, in my opinion, and have a president fairly elected by the Venezuelan people. Also, Maduro is the head of all of the narcotic syndicates in the Americas. The deep state, CIA, China, I believe, are behind this. The trade includes gun running and human trafficking. Venezuela has also been a pivotal partner in computerized voting machine theft involving China, Cuba, Iran, and Serbia. They have been stealing elections in 72 countries, including ours, for about 20 years. What are your thoughts on this, and how would you remedy it?
The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency and other actual U.S. agencies have long said that Venezuela is not involved in the drug trade. And right now, American oil companies are operating inside Venezuela. So I think a lot of what you just told me is some kind of fake story trying to distract people from the real problem. Okay? The elections in the West are being stolen not by Venezuela or Serbia, it's by Israel. Okay? And that's where you need to look. So I need to, actually personally go to Venezuela to see for myself, but I sincerely doubt that they're starving or anything like that. But I just don't know. I'd have to go there myself because there's so much fake information out there now. It's really hard to get to the truth. But I'll try to find out more. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. What are your thoughts on the recent Epstein files that were apparently released in a PDF form and are now able to be unredacted? Do you think that this is a psyops in itself? In my opinion, there's no way the government that runs all sorts of psyopses around the world accidentally releases redacted files in a form that could be reversed and read. Or are you thinking that this could be white hat sabotage from the inside of the deep state?
It could just be sheer incompetence. It could also be white hat sabotage. But there is definitely an aspect of trying to distract us because they're saying they've got 1 million files. They're trying to overwhelm us. All we need to really see is videos of people like Bernie Sanders and then arresting these people. And these files are still being hidden. But enough has come out that, and because it's coming from the Justice Department, that arrests can be made and they need to be made. And everybody who is in a position, if you're military police, FBI, any law enforcement agency, you need to take personal action and start arresting these people. Enough is enough. We need to end this horror show. And the real key is to take control of the money printing machine away from people like Jean-Michel de Rothschild and other hidden handlers. Because that would end their show overnight. And that's what we're going to try to do in the new year. Okay, well, hope to see you next week and next year. Have a happy New Year. I've ever seen in the English media sphere, including a lot of the so-called alternative media. The big thing, of course, was the so-called emergency speech made by Donald Trump on Wednesday. Tucker Carlson was told by a member of Congress that he was going to declare war. And before that, Trump posted that he was going to stop all the flows of Venezuelan oil. Before that, he said he was going to close Venezuelan airspace. Well, neither of these things happened. Because the military has figured out that the Trump, what we're seeing on our screens and in these White House press briefings, is not Donald Trump. He's a fake. He's not their commander-in-chief. And the proof is that he was unable to declare war, even though he had told members of Congress that is what he was going to do. This is a huge development. It shows that something big is going to happen. And of course, the real reason Trump was going to declare war is because he needed to use the War Emergencies Act to prevent the release of the Epstein files, which is due for December 20th. Well, we'll see if that happens. But when you actually listen to his speech, he talks about $18 trillion that he's gotten. Well, from his tariffs and from promises of investments. Well, in the 11 months, what actually happened is you got $236 billion in tariffs, which is basically a tax on American citizens. And that's not anywhere even a fraction of what they need to stop the United States from going bankrupt. We'll see what happens, but it's definitely looking very terminal for this fake show. But I think things are going to happen in the EU first, because there is a full-blown revolution going on there that it once again is not going to be televised until it's really over. But the big thing that's going on in Europe now is that farmers across the continent are revolting, because basically what's going on is the Khazarian mafia is trying to bankrupt farmers through various forms of legislation in order to seize their land. And the farmers have broken into EU headquarters, and they've shut down London, and they're protesting in Greece, France, everywhere. Watch these next 3 video clips to see how intense that is. Okay, you can see from the videos that the police are running away. They're unable to do anything about it. And in what I posted in my weekly report on Monday, you can see that the tanks that were sent in London to suppress the farmers actually sided with the farmers. So this is going to, get more intense. And already, again, this is not being reported in the West, but the government of Bulgaria has fallen because they were going to try to impose the euro on their citizens, and mass protests, put a kibosh on that. And another huge news item that is nowhere in the Western press is that Gerhard Schroeder, the former Prime Minister, Chancellor of Germany, went on German TV, and he said that in 2018, the current Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, was summoned to the 44th floor of Black Rock Tower, and he was told by Larry Fink that Germany had to stop buying cheap oil and gas from Russia and had to buy expensive oil and gas from America. The result is that German industry has fallen by 20% since 2018. And for example, Volkswagen just closed a factory that had been running for 88 years. They're destroying Germany, and they've reached a point where the Germans are in revolt. So this is happening everywhere, and it's not going to get better. They're not going to stay in power. Now, Ursula von der Leyen has already had most of her former colleagues arrested in the Ukrainian corruption scandal, and the dragnet is closing in on her. She's trying to steal Russian assets in order to prevent the bankruptcy of the EU, but the Russians have said they're going to go after anybody who does that. They've publicly said it, and I'm assuming they're going to, take physical action, although, the task reports talk about all legal means. Watching the end of a very ancient regime, and they're running out of tools. Like I say, they put in a fake Trump, but his actions, reveal that he is not the commander-in-chief who was elected by the American people to drain the swamp. He's a fake replacement. And they do that with all sorts of people. It's pretty clear, for example, that Kash Patel, who we're seeing on our screens, is not the Kash Patel who was promising a couple of years ago to release the Epstein files. Instead, they replaced him with a fake, and the rank and file are revolting. They're no longer being able to, you elect a leader to do something, and then he's replaced with somebody who does the opposite, and people are sick and tired of that. They're not going to allow it to continue. And the other thing that people need to understand is that The only thing that is stopping the European people from becoming Chinese Communist Party slaves is Russia. In China now, huge numbers of people are homeless because they have been cut out of the digital currency because their social credit score was too low. And now they're homeless living on the streets. That's the sort of future they were going to impose on us unless we do something about them. And here's some news that it's an exclusive to this podcast, which is, and it's huge as far as I'm concerned, Russian troops are fighting Chinese troops in Thailand and Cambodia. I was looking at, I was trying to figure out what was going on with these clashes between Cambodia and Thailand. It just didn't make sense. And so I asked some Thai royals and some military intelligence in the region. And what they say is what's happening is China is trying to take over Cambodia and build a big deep water port there. And the Russians are trying to stop them. The Russians have made an alliance with all the countries around China. So North Korea, Mongolia, India, Vietnam, etc., and now apparently Thailand, so that they all agree that it will ally and fight together to prevent Chinese expansionism. And the only force that is able to militarily prevent China from moving all the way to Spain is Russia. So these idiots in the so-called coalition of the willing, who are still trying to destroy Russia, are the enemies of the European people. And let's make it clear, there's a few people we need to get rid of in order to finish this nightmare that we're all going through. These are, of course, Larry Fink, Bill Gates, the fake Trump, Ursula von der Leyen, Keir Starmer of the UK, Friedrich Merz of Germany, and then, of course, Jean-Michel de Rothschild, who's cross-dressing and pretending to be Brigitte Macron. The usual suspects. We need to round these people up and make them face charges, war crimes charges. And these are worse war crimes, I would say, than even World War II. For example, a recent opinion poll of Americans found out that, and that's 68% of Americans. So this is a mass poisoning. This is not something that you get a slap on the wrist over. No, this is something you get hung for, okay? And that's the sort of thing we need to do. And we also, we need to make sure they don't get away with replacing leaders with fakes anymore. And these are not clones, okay? They're people who are selected because they look similar. They're given plastic surgery. They're trained to mimic, and then they use computer graphics, and they can be identified through DNA testing. So we also need to make sure that the fake King Charles is removed, and most importantly, we need to take away control of their magic money printing machine, because that's the source of their power. I'm just going to check my notes to see if I have something I missed. Oh yeah, another huge news item that is not being reported by Drudge or anywhere else is the massive flooding in the northwest of the United States. 3 states are completely underwater. This appears to be some sort of weather warfare attack. I'm going to try to find out what the motives are, but it's clearly not a natural event. Take a look at this video to see. Some sort of major turning point. People are waking up en masse, and especially in the military and the intelligence community, understand that Western civilization will collapse unless we throw out these Khazarian mafia criminals. And of course, that means Benjamin Netanyahu has to go, and we need to get the Egyptian military and the Turkish military to move into Israel and clean up that nest and restore the nation state of Judea, which will be multicultural and multinational. Another thing I'd like to point out is I didn't want to celebrate Hanukkah because that is a holiday that actually represents the mass murder of assimilated Jews, and I do not go along with this. However, I do wish to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And people need to understand that The Bible does not say when Jesus Christ was born. So what they did was they took the old solar New Year and replaced it with Jesus Christ. But the fact is that in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun keeps setting further north every day until the 21st of December. And then for 3 days, it appears to set in the same place. And then on December 25th, it starts to move south again. The days start getting longer. So this is a solar New Year. We all live under the same sun, and I think we can all celebrate this holiday, even if you're not Christian. So Merry Christmas and Happy Solar New Year to everybody. And I hope to see you again next week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. After watching Trump's December 17th televised address, many people expected something more consequential, but instead saw a tightly scripted, humorless, and usually self-focused delivery that felt more like an imitation of Trump than his typical presence. Some viewers even noted inconsistencies in physical cues such as height and presence, which led to speculate about whether the speaker was actually Trump or possibly a stand-in. At the same time, this address coincided with the renewed signaling around the election case and a period of extreme weather events across the country. From your perspective, do you see any legitimacy in the speculation about the authenticity of the appearance, or in the idea that the timing and tone of the speech surrounding the events were part of a coordinated narrative or psychological operation?
As I mentioned in my talk, the Khazarian mafia was hoping to use their bought and paid Congress and their fake Trump, and he's obviously fake. Just use your own eyes. Compare the different pictures. Look at the height. They were hoping to fool the military into declaring war in order to prevent themselves from being arrested for war crimes, and it failed. So he was not able to declare war, which was the plan. Instead, he repeated these lies about $18 trillion. And by the way, as an example of these lies, okay, he came to Japan and said he's going to get $550 billion. Well, 3 months later or 2 months later, he's got exactly zero. The same thing with South Korea. So he's not getting, the world is not going to invest $18 trillion in this crime syndicate. They want to pull the plug on them. And their fake Trump is no longer fooling very many people. This whole thing is coming to a crash. And that speech, I think, was a sign of that. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Have there been any significant political or security developments unfolding in South Africa that have not been adequately covered in mainstream reporting?
Well, I don't know about South Africa, but the big thing in Africa is that they have cut themselves off from the Western financial system. Muammar Gaddafi of Libya was the first, because he tried to do this by having a gold-backed African currency to get away from the U.S. dollar and the Khazarian mafia financial system. Well, now they've done it. They've announced their own financial system, and that means Africa is no longer going to be raped for its resources. And I don't normally give investment advice, but I'd say getting in Africa now would be like getting in on ground zero in China back in the day, and I'd highly recommend it. But of course, due diligence, as always, is required. Next question.
And with the newly passed U.S. defense authorization bill including limiting funding for Ukraine, which was far less than previous levels, how do you assess the sustainability of Western support for Ukraine and the likely long-term outcome of the war?
Well, the Ukraine war was a genocide against the Ukrainian people. The idea was to remove the Russian and other peoples from the Ukraine and make a new homeland for the Ashkenazi Jews, the revival of the Khazarian Empire. So, for example, Wagner, remember all these reports about Ukraine fighting Wagner? Well, it was the same people. Zelensky and Wagner worked together. Zelensky would grab Ukrainian men off the streets, they send them to a certain area, and then they tell Wagner where they were, and Wagner would kill them with artillery. So this was always about a mass bribery campaign using money that was supposed to go to Ukraine to bribe politicians in the West, as well as a genocide against the Ukrainian people. And it was not, but it was also an attempt to destroy Russia. The whole thing is blowing up in their faces, and they're not going to get away with this. They're going to face war crimes trials. The whole thing is ending. And Zelensky, he's not there. He's just a TV thing in the West. Next question.
Hi, Ben. The Donald Trump administration has just ordered a naval blockade on sanctioned oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela. Given this, do you think this move signals a real shift in global oil geopolitics, or is it merely a bluff tied to election case pressure?
Well, he was trying to start a war with Venezuela, but the Russians and the Chinese read the Riot Act to the American military, and the American military are now working with the Russians and the Chinese. So no, it failed. Okay, it was an attempt to avoid bankruptcy by stealing Venezuelan oil, as well as an attempt to avoid Epstein file release by declaring war, and it's failing. It's failed. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. With the European Union facing increasing internal strain from farmers' protests, rising energy costs, growing resistance to climate regulations, and the continued decentralization of power in Brussels despite national pushback, do you see the EU entering a phase of managed decline? And do you believe this is actually steering that process behind the scenes? Or who do you believe is steering the process?
I don't think it's going to be managed decline. I think these people are going to fight, to the end, because they know that they're actual Nazis and they know they're going to face war crimes. So I didn't post a clip, but I was sent one of Ursula von der Leyen saying she's going to stay in the EU headquarters until they got money for Ukraine. Well, they're not going to get that money, so hopefully she'll stay in there until she's arrested. But I think the EU is coming to an end. I don't want to be caught on timing, but mathematically and financially, they are doomed. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in, and next podcast will be after Christmas, so Merry Christmas.
Hello, Patriots. I'm at Restored Republic via a GCR compiled by Judy Byington. Imminent EBS, martial law, 10 days of communication darkness for global currency reset to gold asset-backed currencies of 209 nations. FBI, Obama established a shadow government to sabotage Constitution. America, Democratic Socialists pledge allegiance to Chinese Communist Party. There it is. Judy note, it's imminent. Global emergency broadcast system activation under martial law for a 3-day event and then 10 days of communication darkness, while 8 billion people in all banks across the globe complete a global currency reset to gold asset-backed currencies. Temporary martial law alert, expect a global blackout and emergency broadcast system EBS activation. Military units have been mobilizing worldwide for a coordinated strike to destroy the globalist power structure in the greatest sting operation ever. Every cell phone on the planet will be hit, with 7 trumpet sounds transmitted from the Starlink satellites, bypassing the elite-controlled media channels. Afterward, normal communication will cease for 10 days, while truthful documentaries take over the airways to explain what's going on. 10 days of communication darkness. Shutdowns will occur, but only in certain areas. Banks will close, ATMs and credit cards will stop working. You'll need at least 3 weeks of food and water. If you're unprepared, don't worry. The military will supply what you need. Non-stop education will be broadcast, teaching about the true principles of freedom and justice. The Alliance has spent years preparing for this announcement, quietly building a network of satellites and secure communication lines. Over it, President Trump will give 7 messages to the world about a new era of freedom about to begin. Why? Because over 500,000 arrests of treasonous pedophile deep state globalists were in the process of being made worldwide by Trump's global military alliance. For many years, these criminals have had control of the global financial system and have slowly been taking away our freedoms in line with their New World Order Depopulation Agenda 2030. They felt it their right to rule the world and everyone in it. The Global Alliance did not like that idea. They had been forming a plan to end the sale since the Lincoln assassination. Trump had been selected to head that endeavor. His global military alliance had been seriously working on that plan since before his 2016 inauguration. Key to that cabal takeover was the global currency reset of 209 nations that gave the people's taxpayer monies back to the people. On Sunday, August 23, 2026, the new gold asset-backed quantum financial system of 209 nations was set to go live. It's the dawn of financial transparency, accountability, and freedom from cabal control. Obama quietly established a shadow government of radicals to sabotage Donald Trump, the American people, and the Constitution. According to Edward Snowden, through a 501c4 to hide their donors, the Organizing for Action Obama Foundation and DNC network of criminals consisted of over 32,000 radicals with 25,000 more in training. The Senior Executive Service, created under Carter, was weaponized under Obama. In December 2015, Obama's one single executive order turned 8,000 civilian generals into a stay-behind army and replaced 6,000 plus of them with Obama deep state loyalists. Radicals were embedded all over the country to cause chaos. Joining them were some of the leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities. This created a shadow globalist deep state cabal with Obama at the top to take down Trump and the United States itself. Monday, August 10th, 2026. Not only are Democratic Socialists of America members taking a pledge to the Chinese Communist Party, but they are flown over and treated like royalty in China. All of them should be forced to renounce their citizenship. Senator Jim Banks, this is what they want to do to America. Turn it into communist China. This letter by the leadership of DSA makes that very clear. They stand with socialist communist China, and they want the rest of the world to take a page from China's playbook and become that. Trump was also taking down the left's mass protest funding networks in Cuba, where he just increased CIA operations and was not ruling out military operations. Marco Rubio confirmed Cuba's funding NGOs, organizing mass protests.
On Sunday, the 22nd of November 2026, the new ISO 20022 international banking standards will go into full effect on this 63rd anniversary of the assassination of U.S. President. When combined with Basel III and Project Aurora, they will make it almost impossible to hide dark money anywhere in the world that matters. Many people think that Kennedy was killed because he signed Executive Order 11,110, which told the U.S. Treasury to avoid the Federal Reserve monetary system and make new money using fixed amounts of U.S. stockpiled silver. This step would have almost certainly caused a huge economic chain reaction around the world that would have brought down the whole European-based central banking empire. Tier 4B ISO 200.
Monday, August 10th. Quantum financial system goes live. Cabal wealth seized. Global currency reset in motion. Quantum satellites and military guarded nodes secure the greatest financial revolution of our time. The quantum financial system is no longer in testing. It's here, actively running, exposing and recording every elite move as it rolls out globally. The countdown to full-scale launch has begun, and with it, the world's financial landscape is about to change forever. Transition to the new financial system. Sunday, August 9th, global financial reset and asset seizure underway following recent tribunal disclosures. Tier 4B ISO 20 emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to the exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London, and New York are under direct audit as authorities unwind decades of illicit funding used to sustain global operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates, and pharmaceutical fronts are facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system is accelerating backed by asset-based currencies designed to eliminate debt-based manipulation. Old banking rails are being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts are scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, transaction ledgers, and digital forensics will be released simultaneously globally to ensure full transparency. This is the systematic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity is collapsing. Stay informed and verify all updates through secure channels.
QFS deployment updates since the start of the year. QFS has been in beta trials within select regions aligned against the global cabal. These test areas now experience instant, secure transactions bypassing traditional banking, feeding data into the quantum ledger that's invulnerable and transparent. Over 100 million real-time transactions daily pass through QFS, each transaction documented and tracked within the world's most secure ledger. Quantum satellites guarding the revolution. 13 quantum satellites, guarded by military alliances, now secure QFS's global network. These satellites, far beyond mainstream agencies like NASA, are developed by classified military contractors and form an unbreakable connection that shields data from hacking. Each transaction is encrypted, every byte safeguarded, ensuring zero vulnerability. Operation Dark Mirror, exposing corruption. Operation Dark Mirror uses QFS to map out corrupt networks in the traditional banking system. Every shadow account, offshore haven, and illicit transfer tied to human trafficking or drug smuggling is now cataloged in real time. High-profile arrests across Europe and Asia have already quietly traced back to QFS data, and these are just the beginning. A permanent record now exists that corrupt elites can't erase, hide, or manipulate. Banks in turmoil. System glitches as QFS interferes. Since mid-July 2026, banks in key regions report technical glitches with frozen transactions and fluctuating balances. These are no random errors. They're the first signs of QFS challenging traditional banking. As QFS runs parallel to legacy systems, it exposes every inconsistency, revealing fraudulent transfers and artificial inflation schemes. The cabal's banks are scrambling, terrified by QFS's presence, which audits every move and shines a light on embezzled funds and manufactured scarcity. Countdown to Global Currency Reset (GCR). The Global Currency Reset (GCR) is on the horizon, bringing an asset-backed currency to replace fiat. Governments are already liquidating gold reserves into QFS, preparing for the largest wealth transition in history. Once this reset completes, fiat currencies will be worthless, replaced by an incorruptible system. Military oversight. Final preparations for QFS rollout. Military forces worldwide are securing key QFS nodes and testing sites, ensuring the system remains uncompromised. August 2026 marks a pivotal month, with special ops safeguarding regional hubs. This presence shows the stakes. If QFS fails, the cabal regains control, but with soldiers securing these hubs, the elite's last vestiges of power crumble. Prepare yourself. The storm will break with QFS. From Sun. 23 Aug. 2026, the QFS is no longer a test. It's the dawn of transparency, accountability, and freedom from cabal control. The countdown has begun, and there's nowhere left for the elites to hide. The quantum financial system is here to end every lie and deception ever used. The four portals of the quantum financial system, QFS, USA, European, UK, and Asia-Africa-Australia portals are set to connect and transform the world. Discover how these portals will bring transparency, asset-backed currencies, and global financial freedom, ending deep state control. The quantum financial system, QFS, is here, set to forever change how the world handles money. The era of corrupt financial practices, hidden transactions, and deep state manipulation is coming to an end. The QFS promises transparency, security, and direct control over personal finances. The system operates through its four portals, gateways connecting the world's financial networks. This isn't just another financial overhaul, it's a transformation of the global economy. The four portals of the QFS connect continents and bring financial autonomy to millions. 1. USA Portal, the lifeblood of the Americas. Covering North, Central, and South America, the USA portal ensures connection to the QFS across the Western Hemisphere. The introduction of the U.S. note, USN, an asset-backed currency tied to gold and silver, replaces the corrupt system centered around the U.S. dollar. With this shift, the Federal Reserve's control over the American economy ends, marking the collapse of the fiat system. Impact on everyday people. The USA portal will empower citizens from Canada to Chile with direct access to their wealth, free from bank manipulation. This portal brings unprecedented stability through the USN, an asset-backed currency providing financial sovereignty across the continent. 2. European portal, reclaiming financial sovereignty. Breaking free from the euro, the European portal allows countries like Spain, Italy, France, and Germany to reclaim financial independence. Each nation will issue its own QFS-linked currency backed by assets, ensuring the end of financial manipulation. A united, yet independent Europe. Under the QFS, each country will manage its economy independently while retaining transparency and security. This shift means financial freedom for individuals and national autonomy, signaling the end of the deep state's control over Europe's financial systems. 3. UK portal, a return to sterling strength. The UK portal introduces the sterling token, an asset-backed currency restoring financial independence to England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. This new currency, supported by the QFS, ends Britain's reliance on the euro and deep state influence, with each transaction secure and traceable. 4. Asia-Africa-Australia portal, a continental shift in power covering a vast area including India, South Africa, Australia, and all of Asia. This portal represents a seismic shift in global financial power. The QFS will support these nations with asset-backed currencies, promoting economic prosperity from their own resources rather than exploitation by external forces. Unleashing a new wave of prosperity, Asia, Africa, and Australia, once battlegrounds for financial manipulation, will experience newfound prosperity. This portal promises a future where wealth benefits the people and economies of these regions, free from external interference. The grip of the deep state is loosening as financial freedom becomes a reality. Update. New list of 209 countries that are connected to the QFS system or are being connected. QFS plus RTGS trust the plan. Today, we uncover the intricate web of banks that are now aligning with the QFS system. The QFS, or Quantum Financial System, has been the subject of much speculation, whispers in dimly lit rooms, and late-night conspiracy theory forums. Some say it's the future, while others claim it's just another fanciful myth. But what if I told you that 97 of the top 100 central banks are being covertly connected to this system? The world's central banks have long been seen as the puppeteers of the global economy, shaping the fate of nations with their decisions. Their influence is undeniable. But what happens when these behemoths of finance join forces with an emergent, arguably enigmatic, technological powerhouse like the QFS? Hold on to your hats, folks, because here comes the bombshell. Our inside source, a brave individual deep within military intelligence circles, identity classified for obvious reasons, has dropped a piece of information that might just shake the very foundations of the global economy. 97 of the top 100 central banks are currently under transformation to become fully operational under the QFS plus RTGS system. That's not all. The remaining 82 smaller central banks are gearing up for this transition. But first, let's roll back a bit. For those of you who have been living under a rock, or perhaps wisely distancing yourself from the maddening world of global finance and its shady undertakings, the QFS plus RTGS is the new kid on the block. It stands for Quantum Financial System and Real-Time Gross Settlement. In layman terms, it's a sophisticated financial network ensuring instantaneous money transfers without the usual delays. Why is this significant, you ask? Well, imagine the world where money flows without barriers, without time lapses, without the invisible hands manipulating the scene behind thick velvet curtains. A world where every transaction is transparent, well, to those who know where to look. This is the promise of the QFS. Boom! There are a total of 179 central banks listed by the BIS, with about 80 more when counting regional monetary authorities among the 209 countries, All these are being connected too. Party 1 QFS plus RTGS. List of banks that are connected to the QFS system.
Well, the interesting thing is there's already a treaty in place for 209 countries to trade in gold 1-for-1. It's been in existence for quite some time, and it's actually going into effect right now. What J.D. Vance is doing and what others are doing, I think, are false flags. Because if 209 countries have already agreed to go to asset-backed currency, and as soon as it's officially announced, we go to an election 120 days from that announcement. Not the midterms, but 120 days from that announcement, according to the law that was passed for Nisara Jasara. So when we look at 209 countries agreeing that they're going to trade, if I'm going to buy corn, I'm going to pay whatever the gold rate is today for that corn. And it's going to be 1-for-1, country to country. That is the theory of the Jasara and the QFS, the quantitative financial system. If a country goes to war, quantitative financial system takes all its money, so it can't go to war. But the reality of the trade becomes very interesting. I was interested in the way barter is starting to go back into place. When I talk barter, we're talking about AJ's trading off vegetables for gold and silver, or silver and gold for land. That's barter. That's the old-fashioned barter system. I know that when the Vatican gold was taken out, its estimated value was between 36 and 57 quadrillion dollars on 640 or 620 Air Force airplanes hauled that gold back to the United States, and that the Chinese elders and Trump's people and the other countries, other 209 countries, have been actually distributing the gold to make sure that everybody has the asset-backed currency they're supposed to have. This is a dramatic change in the world we live in. When it's going to be officially announced, we don't know. We do know that QFS has replaced the SWIFT system. I've experienced transferring money from the United States to Europe in 5 minutes, where it used to take almost a week. So we know that the SWIFT system is essentially gone. We also know that Putin never took it, never believed in it, never had it, that he operated separate from it. And we know that Putin, Xi, Modi, Trump have been working together on the gold-backed currency business, in spite of what we read about what's going on. There are pictures of the four of them sitting around a table.
Military intel, global strategic impact, Starlink's military applications, RVs and GSARA, and the quantum financial system. In this extraordinary epoch, we find ourselves at the crossroads of technological evolution and financial innovation. The convergence of the quantum financial system, QFS, stellar network, and Starlink satellite system heralds a new dawn, redefining the paradigms of monetary transactions and fortifying financial security across the globe. Quantum financial system, QFS, the Fort Knox of financial systems. At the heart of this revolution is the quantum financial system, QFS, a marvel of technological advancement synonymous with unmatched security and transparency. QFS is not merely a system. It is a symphony of ultra-secure financial transactions, epitomizing the pinnacle of monetary protection and ensuring the inviolability of financial data. The revolutionary QFS leverages quantum computing to safeguard financial transactions and information, eliminating the vulnerabilities of traditional systems. By encrypting data with quantum technology, QFS renders unauthorized access and financial crimes obsolete, establishing a financial ecosystem impervious to external threats and securing the trust of individuals and nations in this new financial paradigm. Stellar Network, the prodigy of financial efficiency. Next, let's explore the Stellar Network, a prodigious entity that converges efficiency and inclusivity within the financial sphere. It is the linchpin uniting disparate financial systems, catalyzing seamless, cost-effective cross-border transactions, and fostering financial cohesion and prosperity. Stellar is the harbinger of financial democratization, offering swift and affordable financial services to every individual, regardless of geographical or economic barriers. As a catalyst for economic empowerment, it envisions a future where financial obstacles are non-existent, ensuring that secure and equitable financial transactions are accessible to all. Starlink, bridging distances, connecting worlds. Finally, Starlink emerges as a beacon of hope, bridging the digital divide with Elon Musk's ambitious constellation of satellites. This pioneering venture promises unparalleled internet connectivity, narrowing the digital chasm and making global communication a reality for every community, even in the remotest corners. Starlink's mission transcends geographical constraints, empowering remote areas and laying the foundation for universal financial inclusion. With this vast network, connectivity becomes a cornerstone of global financial security, enabling the world to embrace a secure, inclusive, and efficient financial future. The amalgamation of QFS, Stellar, and Starlink is not just a convergence of technologies, it is the manifestation of a financial utopia. This alliance forges a realm where security, inclusivity, and efficiency coexist, creating a new reality where every transaction embodies unparalleled safety, every individual benefits from financial inclusivity, and every nation contributes to global economic cooperation.
Monday, August 10th, Donald Trump's vision for Q phones and Jasara is more than a leap in technology, it's a global financial revolution. Powered by Stellar blockchain, this plan redefines currency, communication, and power. Are you ready for what's coming? The global currency reset is more than whispers. It's a storm brewing in the corridors of power. Q phones are at the center, preloaded with Stellar wallets to connect directly to the quantum financial system. Imagine real-time global transactions without banks, fees, or delays. This is financial freedom on a cosmic scale.
Rescare event. Nuke Sirens water event stock market crash global martial law Castle Rock scenario Julian Assange. Quantum systems. Project Odin switched on. Nasara/Jasara/RV election flipping via military courts. FISA military tribunals confessions 10-day movie. 3 times 8 HR sessions. 10 countries will be running EBS to cover the whole world. Reveals. Inauguration, the Israeli Mossad control the world's media out of the U.S. Attached is Q1871 outlining this. Project Odin, as mentioned by Ron Code Monkeyes, is a powerful anti-deplatforming tool. Project Odin is part of Quantum Starlink. Our new quantum systems are to be protected by secret space programs out of the cabal's reach. Q2337 tells you Mossad media assets will be removed. Think people like Alex Jones, Anderson Cooper, etc., and also Mossad satellites. Israeli intelligence, stand down. Term 3720x 380-293,476,669,283,001. Media assets will be removed. This part of 2527 tells you that something powerful is going to knock out Mossad media satellites. This will black out the media worldwide, switch us over to the quantum systems. This is Project Odin. All in all, give the reason to activate the military EBS. If you look up the TURKSAT rocket that launched from the USA in January, you will see it was specifically for military COMMS to people's TVs and radios in Africa, Middle East, Europe, and Central Asia. The event has many facets to it. the worldwide blackout to change over to Tesla energy, knocking out media satellites, QFS, rods of God on dams, and 34 buildings, and much, much more. 34 buildings will be in the event. They are very significant, i.e. White House, royal castles, Buckingham Palace, Vatican, Getty Museum, Playboy Mansion, and the like. This will surely make the stock market collapse, as will Precision Cyber linked to Executive Orders 13,818 and 13,848. It is all a show. Swapping from Rothschild's central bank notes to rainbow treasury notes now backed by precious metals. Not oil wars. Are we still comfy? Or are we scared? A little bit of both is normal. Trump keeps his promises. Have faith in the Lord our God. He will comfort you through the storm. Who saw in January up to 10 countries at once have their power all turned off by the Space Force? Just before that, Israel had that happen for 30 mins too. If they can turn 10 at once off altogether, they can do the whole lot. Welcome to Tesla. Blackout necessary. Have a look at all the global military exercises now being put in place. It's all happening in front of you. It's the largest global military operation in planet Earth's history. Transition to Jassara/greatness. Now they just have to play out a fake WW3 scenario to ring sirens in every national military command center. This is to justify to the whole entire planet many things that have been taking place already. The fact that Jassara military law has been in place. The secret military tribunals, confessions, etc. The executions, the lot. And like all militaries normally do...
Monday, August 10th, Black Swan events, massive cyber attack pending, global financial collapse happening now. China, Germany have experienced financial collapses. Banks, closures, markets down, Bitcoin stopped trading. Happening now. Devolution plan, martial law, already in effect for continuity of government. White Hat military arrest wars. JAG, Gitmo, and World Court tribunals. Quantum financial system active. Expected soon. Blackout, EBS activation. Hillary Clinton exposed warning, viewer discretion. Advised. Crimes against humanity, high crimes, human trafficking, human farming, child sex, pedophilia, adrenochrome, genocide, terrorism, treason. Sunday, August 9th, mass cyber blackouts, neutralize corporate data centers and deep state communication backbones. Global intelligence alliances have confirmed that secure military tribunals are now in session around the clock. Secure servers ensures that all involved actors face immediate prosecution under war crime jurisdiction. Citadel protocols remain active worldwide. Civilian governance structures are replaced by direct operational command to maintain absolute public security during the systematic dissolution of the old elite class. This is the turning point. The network is deconstructed. Stay plugged into secure channels for continuous disclosure logs as the new paradigm unfolds. Global Military Alliance initiates full seizure of mainstream media, broadcasting networks, and corporate news headquarters to implement emergency truth transmissions. Massive military sweep across elite private islands and subterranean facility networks confirms complete neutralization of rogue operations and underground human logistics nodes. Interpol and Global Military Command execute simultaneous raids on Central Intelligence Black Site archives, recovering decades of hidden financial records, blackmail vaults, and direct order logs. International shipping hubs and port authorities placed under strict military quarantine to prevent high-profile elites from escaping via private maritime fleets and diplomatic aircraft. Over 80,000 military police and special operation units deployed across major financial and political capitals to secure critical infrastructure during the ongoing global transition.
Global Military Command authorizes nationwide emergency broadcasting overrides to transmit 10 days of hidden documentary evidence and confessions directly to all public screens. The emergency deployment of Space Force communications, relays to lock down secure quantum channels, and block corporate media censorship entirely. International banking consortia and central ledger systems confirmed completely offline as the full transition to asset-backed currency protocols takes effect. Over 150,000 sealed indictments unsealed simultaneously across federal districts, triggering immediate asset freezes and executive detention orders for international corporate titans and compromised media executives. You can't make this up, and if you're still reading the mainstream headlines thinking it's just random noise, you are missing the whole operation playing out right in front of your eyes. Let's talk about what just landed on the global radar, creating total confusion and weird panic on the public feeds. Suddenly, all the big feeds and emergency channels were ablaze with strange panic narratives, promoting wild tales of sudden global banking freezes, high-security grid alerts, and massive institutional lockouts, all occurring simultaneously across international hubs. The mainstream talking heads are scrambling on live TV, feeding the masses completely fabricated distractions to explain why entire legacy frameworks are suddenly locking up or going dark. They call it system upgrades, routine maintenance, or sudden technical anomalies. I call it what it really is, the ISO 20022 hard cutover. What the general public does not understand is that these sudden digital blackouts and institutional freezes are the direct result of the new messaging, standard completely displacing the old dying Swift nodes. Behind those locked doors, the whole global financial matrix is moving over to the ISO 20022 compliant rails, locking in the asset-backed reality once and for all. They aren't fixing bugs. They are pulling the plug on the old debt system to make way for the quantum financial system. And right next to this massive migration, the operational pressure points for Tier 4B are coming to their absolute boiling point. While the mainstream press is screaming about random economic anomalies, the private redemption and exchange structures set up for Tier 4B are quietly completing their final systems syncs in the background. The appointment scheduling protocols, secure routing links, and verification nodes are lighting up, meaning that the long-awaited instructions are getting ready to drop for the Internet group holding the physical asset-backed currencies. Every time a major legacy node freezes, every time a banking portal goes down unexpectedly, every time the media frantically spins a new distraction, another layer of the corporate fiction crumbles away. The transition is no longer some distant theory, but rather is pushing its way through the physical infrastructure right now. Wake up to what is really going on. They can try to cover it up with corporate spin and digital smoke, but the basic architecture is being rewritten from the ground up. Keep your eyes wide open. Stay locked into the reality of the ISO and the Tier 4B deployment, and watch how fast the old world collapses under the weight of its own lies. Obama's shadow operation to destroy Trump and the United States itself. Edward Snowden https://t/me/Edward Snowden channel Obama quietly established a shadow opposition government, a network of radicals and corrupt power, a coordinated machine built to sabotage Donald Trump and the U.S. itself from day one. This was first conceived through the Obama campaign in 2012, and then turned it into a 501c4 to hide their donors, through a radical Alinsky-trained group that Obama founded called the OFA, or Organizing for Action. These are the deep state's radical foot soldiers. This shadow network of criminals consisted of over 30,000 radicals embedded all over the country. These are professionally trained criminals, more sophisticated and ruthless than groups such as Black Lives Matter and other riot groups, causing chaos all over the country. These professional criminals and agitators are schooled in Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, tactics from a program that lasted 6 weeks, which over 32,000 foot soldiers have attended, with another 25,000 that were training at the time to directly work for the deep state to take down Republicans, conservatives, the United States, and the Constitution itself. OFA and the Obama Foundation were the fronts for these operations, which he proudly advertised, and then planned to merge both of these foundations together. Along with the DNC, then they get the proprietary database of the voters from OFA, the email list of millions of Obama supporters, and add the donor lists on top, which then creates a superstructure. To top it off, you also have some of the leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities, which then creates an unprecedented shadow cabal with Obama at the top to take down Trump and the United States itself. This is what was being created, and doing the bidding of Obama and the globalist deep state cabal itself. Once you see the big picture, you start to finally understand what we are truly up against and are fighting to save this country. They branded me a traitor. History will call me a hero. The IRS adopted the SSN as the Taxpayer Identification Number in 1962. The Tax Reform Act of 1976 opened it to the states. But does that ACT apply to you? The IRS is a privately owned by the Cabal Corporation. In 1986, Congress required an SSN to claim your own child as a dependent. But did filing apply to you? Then came enumeration at birth in 1987. An entire generation was numbered in the nursery. A number created for a ledger became the key to employment, banking, credit, and licensing. But is it the law? No, it's the perception of the law, banking. Do you know foreign nationals can get bank accounts with their passports and other ID? But an American, only by jumping through hoops that nobody tells you about, know the history. The intent of a law is very important. Many of them come from lobbyists who know the right people, know the difference between what the law requires and what the system demands. Do you have to participate in the system? Likely not. I figured it out back in 1999. It's legal fawkery. Want to know more? Text 1776 to 954 775 852 for what's most pressing on your mind.
Happening is quite extraordinary. First of all, there's a full-blown military revolt underway in the United States. Okay, this is can be seen in the media to some extent with Joe Kent, the head of the anti-terrorism task force, resigning. Take a look at this clip with Tucker Carlson showing why he resigns. They're going to try to charge Joe Kent with leaking classified information and put him in jail. But they're not willing to arrest people who... Is that what the United States has come to? Is that the sort of government you want? This is not going to be allowed to continue. And I've received multiple intelligence communications from military white hats that Trump tried to order the U.S. military to start a ground war in Iran and that they are disobeying his orders. Now, we need to take this further because this is a life or death situation. These people use targeted assassinations. They'll try to kill any military leaders who are trying to oppose this Armageddon attempt. So what needs to be done is you need to send special forces into the Treasury Department, the fake White House studio in Florida, and the headquarters of the major media companies like Google, Meta, and the various networks. They need to be occupied by the military so that they can start conveying the truth to the people. For example, one truth they are not announcing is that Iran has sent a message to all major countries saying that the Strait of Hormuz is open. The only country they are blocking is the United States and their rulers in Israel. So the Straits of Hormuz are open. It's only the Americans who are being blocked. Now, the other big news item that's not being reported, but that needs to be reported, is that a ground war has started. Israel is now being invaded or occupied, or liberated, I should say, from these Satanists. And that is another huge news item that you're probably not seeing in your corporate news feed. So it's important for the military to get a hold of the corporate news feed and start conveying the truth to the people, because they all know it anyway. Nobody believes it anymore. You know, and this is a problem too that extends to Canada. You know, the Canadian Human Rights Commission is saying Canada no longer has human rights, and this is because, again, a lot of the political class there, just as in the United States, are blackmailed pedophiles. So I suggest that the white hats in the U.S. military and the British military work with the white hats in the Canadian military to clean up the Anglo-Saxon world from this filth. And the rest of the world is waiting for us to get rid of our satanic infection. Okay, now take a look. This is Chinese lawyer Victor Gao saying that China is ready to release the Epstein files, all of them. So China is aware that the Western world has got some kind of infection of evil, and they're going to try to do something about it. And the key, and this is the real key, is you have to take away control of their funny money machine. Okay, Trump has just offered, $200 billion to the military. You can see that in this clip here with the Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi Sanai, who, by the way, is a complete slave, but we'll get into that another day. But in any case, Japan has politely said they're not going to join any war against Iran, and Trump goes around saying, we'll give you $200 billion to the U.S. military. Well, that money is just money created out of nothing. Okay, it's stolen from the people, and it is why you are poor. Now the Federal Reserve Board has come out and shown that these NGOs have more than $14 trillion that is taken from people, to fund things like the WHO, which is trying to turn us all into permanent slaves. So the key is to remove their control of the funny money machine, and the Dragon family has sent documents to the U.S. Treasury that would open the floodgates for as much funding as the United States and Canada need to rebuild their infrastructure, to end the poverty, and to rejoin the world community as normal, non-terrorist countries. Let's face it, the U.S. and Israel are the world's main source of terrorism, together with their cousins in Ukraine. These satanic gangsters need to be permanently eradicated, and these funds will help. Now, the other thing that we have on offer, the White Hat Alliance has an open offer to the American people that all your debt will be written off. You'll have no more debt, none. Plus, we will return the money that was stolen from you through central bank fraud. So all those NGOs that have money, that's money that was stolen from you. Okay, that's $14 trillion that should be returned to you. This is what's going to happen as soon as we take away control of the magic money machine. And the key is to locate the French Rothschild family and the other members of these families, the Rockefellers. They all need to be rounded up, taken in for questioning, and then we can end this. And it will be a very, very good thing for humanity when these people are finally removed. And it is happening. Like I say, there's a military revolt happening in real time, and this needs to be encouraged. I even heard it on Far Eastern military radio that the head of the Delta Force was on that radio saying that they're not going to go to war with Iran. So the revolt is underway, but we need to get those corporate media outlets from the hands of these people, and we need to start arresting all the Epstein criminals, starting with the fake Donald Trump. And as Joe Kent wrote in his letter, he's aware that the real Donald Trump has been missing since June of 2025. So he's not your commander-in-chief. He is a fraud who replaced the real commander-in-chief, Donald J. Trump, who has been missing since he went to a G7 meeting in Canada in 2025. And that means that Mark Carney of Canada needs to be held responsible for this. This is not how you treat a neighbor. And we can all end this right away, and the military needs to not waver, and they need to go straight into those corporations, and they need to take over control of all the screens so that the truth once again comes out, because the truth is going to set us free. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Oh, one more thing. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's now missed his 14th consecutive security meeting. He's definitely out of the picture. They put out different fakes of him. One where he's a rubber mask guy who's lost 50 pounds in a week, and the other ones. But he's gone, and that's a good thing. I mean, it means that Israel is actually leaderless. Even if they keep putting out fake videos, it's not going to change the reality. And Israel is being occupied now. The military is moving in there, according to the Iranians. All right, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. There are reports stating that Iran has choked off nitrogen fertilizer exports, and with 35 to 40% of fertilizer coming out of the Gulf, do you see this becoming a global food crisis for the West? And by doing this, doesn't this play right into the hands of the Khazarian mafia? And does this turn into a food supply shortage, in your opinion?
The only people who are threatening to cut off fertilizer are the Khazarian mafia. The Iranians have announced that they're not cutting off anything. So if there's a cutoff of fertilizer, you're going to have to go to the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers to solve that problem, not to the Iranians. But yeah, the Khazarian mafia is trying to create a food crisis. Anything they can do to prevent justice for their mass murder of children. Next question.
Hi, Ben. There is news that Cuba has given in to the pressure and is now in negotiations with the United States. What are your thoughts on this, and what do you think is the outcome?
Uh, the Russians are now sending ships to supply Cuba with fuel. But at the end of the day, I think that the Americas, North and South America, are going to have to come to a new arrangement to replace the dominance of the region by the Khazarian mafia-controlled United States. So hopefully, Cuba will have friendly relations with all the rest of the Americas in a mutually beneficial manner. But what they must not do is surrender to the people behind the fake Donald Trump. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Bibi's dead theory is now circulating everywhere, and you touched on this already. We're increasingly seeing more AI videos as Israel tries to, quote, prove that he's alive. Is it, or do you think that he's just hiding somewhere?
If he is alive, he should be hiding because, personally, I want him to be alive because I want him to be arrested in front of the cameras and then face a war crimes tribunal and then be hung in public if found guilty. That's what we really want. Next question.
Hi, Ben. I'm wondering about the Q drops that are very consistently saying that Israel must be saved for last. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but maybe you do. And are we there yet?
Well, clearly, if Israel is liberated, then the United States will be liberated. And the other group that needs to be dealt with are all these satanic Nazis in the Ukraine. So I would say Ukraine and Israel and the United States are being saved for last. And that's happening now in real time. Hopefully the American people will be liberated from these satanic cultists sooner rather than later. And the U.S. military is on the case. And I strongly encourage all members of the U.S. Armed Forces to create a new chain of command outside of the control of fake Donald Trump and the people around him. Next question.
Ivan, we have our last question for today. It says, I don't think Mark Carney will last 6 months. It doesn't make me feel comfortable of hearing the bad news about Indian immigrants in Canada creating huge criminal networks in major cities, except for Montreal, Quebec City, and any maritime cities. The whole creation of India, after all, had a Zionist pretext, and India today is essentially an Israeli colony, just like the United States. Many of the Hindu nationalists in India are Israeli spies, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on this take?
Well, certainly Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the Epstein files, and he's gone out of his way to suck up to the Israeli regime, so they must have some compromise on him. However, I wouldn't, I think overall India is an English-speaking friend of the Anglo-Saxon world, and we should have good relations with India. And as far as immigrants creating crime networks is concerned, clearly in the past few years, Canadian immigration policy has degenerated. It used to be that you had to be very useful, well-educated, and provide job skills that no Canadians had in order to immigrate into Canada. Now they're taking these high school dropout men, military age from the third world, and dumping them in Canada. That is not what Canadian immigration policy should be about. And I strongly encourage the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to, eliminate all these crime networks and start deporting, foreign-born criminals who are brought in to deliberately cause unrest. As now, by now, a critical mass of humanity is aware, Western civilization got hijacked by a satanic cult. And this goes back thousands of years, and this cult is in the process of being overthrown. Take a look at this event in Iran where they're burning an effigy of Baal to see what I'm talking about. Now, it's not just Iran. I mean, the whole world at this point is aware of the nature of this cult. And there is an international movement. I mean, the Chinese are fully aware of what they're dealing with now. So are the Russians, the Russian Orthodox Church, and a critical mass within the Western military-industrial complex, the intelligence agencies, understands that their top ranks have been compromised by this cult. Now, this, as the next step, let's see what the Alexander Dugin, speaking for Russia, has to say about the situation. There can be no doubt that the current paradigm is collapsing, but the question is, what do we do about it? And the answer is not going to be easy. Last week, I was offered a huge amount of money by the Chinese to help rebuild the Western system, but I did not accept it because, first of all, who am I? Why should I be me? So instead, what we're going to have to do, and this is what has been negotiated behind the scenes, and we're hoping to make it happen, is we'll replace the blackmailed pedophile Keir Starmer as the Chancellor of the Prime Minister of the UK, and replace him with Nigel Farage, who's a genuine, talented individual. And at that point, we will call for a new Bretton Woods agreement. So, in full public scrutiny, under full public scrutiny, we will work on replacing the current system. It's not going to be another secret thing where a document is passed, and no, it's got to be done in public, and this is going to, be a big process. But what I think the conclusion is, and I remember when I first appeared to talk about this stuff on Jeff Rent's about 20 years ago, I said that if Jesus Christ was alive today, the first thing he would do would be to unplug the mainframes at the Federal Reserve Board. And I still think that is the truth. We don't want a system based on numbers put into computers that then control us through mathematical formulas. That's not how we want to manage our civilization. But that's what's happening. And I'll show you let's take a look now at the Pam Bondi hearings to show you what I mean. First, listen to California Representative Ted Lieu confront Bondi.
I love this.
So that, again, is the fake Trump, because there is a real Trump who's a very different individual who worked with the White Hats and who's not with, you have to understand that. It's like you have two different studios, each with their own Batman. We have two different studios, each with their own Trump. If you can't wrap your head around this, you're not going to figure out what's going on. Okay, in any case, the Epstein hearings in the U.S. government was mostly kabuki, in the sense that you didn't see names like Rockefeller or Rothschild appear. They didn't talk about because they're trying to limit it, and they're most of them are involved on both sides. So that's why they're pulling their punches. Nonetheless, I think Representative Massey is not one of these individuals. Take a look at what he has to say.
Chairman.
Releasing the list of people who risk their lives to testify against these criminals while hiding the names of these criminals. And this shows you that they're all in cahoots. But more important is listen to Bondi's answer. She basically says, well, the Dow Jones is at $50,000. The thing is, though, their money machine is no longer affecting the real economy. They publish nothing but lies. For example, they recently published a jobs report that was supposed to be better than expected, 130,000 new jobs added, when in fact, if you take away the mathematical seasonal adjustment magic, you find that 2.65 million people became newly unemployed. So it's all falling apart, and their lies about the system are not going to work. And the other thing is that in order to guard their magic monetary system, they have been systematically... I was just reading about how they now show that Kurt Cobain of the band Nirvana was murdered. Well, he's just one of many. Bob Marley was murdered because he was a non-Khazarian, non-European leader. The same with Bruce Lee. He was murdered because he was not part of their cult, and they don't like talented people who are not part of their cult. The same with President John F. Kennedy. He was a Catholic. He wasn't part of their group, so they killed him. Martin Luther King. They've been doing this systematically to try to stay in power, and that's why they really do need to face justice. And again, the alternative to this system is one that has been worked out through trial and error over hundreds of years. It started with Nazi Germany. Okay, never mind the Holocaust, which was a burnt offering to Satan of assimilated Jews by other, satanic Jews. Let's leave that part aside. Everyone got a Volkswagen. They built the Autobahn highway system. They had television, phones, all sorts of stuff brought to you without debt or taxes by having the government issue money. And they radically raised the standards of living, of the German people. Now, the same thing happened in Japan after World War II. They set up a system of future planning. They had an economic planning agency, and they had decades of double-digit growth. And until the system started being taken apart by the Khazarian mafia, countless prime ministers and bureaucrats and stuff. But by 1985, they had the highest standard of living on Earth and the least gap between the rich and the poor in any of the OECD countries, the developed countries. And that system was taken apart. However, in the 1980s, or was it 70s, I think, Deng Xiaoping, the leader of China, went to Japan. He visited the founder of Panasonic, Matsushita Konosuke, and learned the system that had led to Japanese success. And that's what the Chinese have done. That's why, for example, in 2024, a single Chinese company produced more ships than the entire United States did in the 80 years after World War II. So what we're talking about is implementing an improved version of the system for economic management of the West, and then switching the Western civilization's long-term goal from creating a world capital in Jerusalem to one of helping increase the amount and variety of life, including human life. That would be our long-term goal, but we would once again be the good guys. That's what we're fighting for, and that's why it has to be done in public with an international conference like Bretton Woods, so everybody's on board, or at least as many people as possible, so that we can accomplish the greatest good for the greatest number. That's what we're fighting for, but until the Chinese New Year's ends in March, we're going to watch this system continue to fall apart. And if I'm reading I read the comments in different sites, and basically, we're very close to all these people being dragged out of their houses and hung from the nearest lamppost. That's where it's getting to, so we better act quick. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers. There was one last thing I forgot to mention. We saw Elon Musk hallucinating about building giant AI factories on the moon. This is an example of how they've been taking their magic money and pumping it through people like him, but it's not really, producing the results. And he's freaking out because he's about to lose this magic money machine that makes him the so-called richest man on Earth, when in fact, in normal business practice, he would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. never mentioned being arrested for fraud, which is true of a lot of these people. Okay, now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers. Next question.
Ivan, that being said, do you believe that Satan exists? You often talk about the world being run by Satanists. Do you believe that this is really a spiritual warfare and that there's some sort of benefit that these elites are getting by performing these rituals?
Well, they themselves actually believe that Satan is real, and if they do something like sacrifice a child, they will get a lot of money or power or something. But even if you don't have to invoke the supernatural. You can just think of it as a kind of a cultural phenomenon, a kind of a multi-generational group mind that functions as Satan. So, you don't have to bring in anything interdimensional, although that may well exist. It's just this collective group mind among very high level the elite that is the problem, and that can that can be defined as Satan. So yeah. Next question.
Ivan, could you elaborate on how you think we can pay off these massive debts without giving more money to the criminals who indebted us in the first place?
Yeah, we have to have a jubilee. That means we have to completely reboot the entire financial system, and then we start by inventorying the real stuff, land and buildings and factories and gold and stuff like that, to come up with a new system that's actually controlled by the people and is used for the people. So it's not a question of borrowing from these people again. No, we don't want debt slavery anymore. The whole thing will have to be rebooted, and that's why we need a big conference to work this out. This is not going to be done by a small group of people in secret. Next question.
Hi Ben, what are your thoughts on reptilians or shapeshifters? Do you think they exist? What about videos of people with vertically long pupils or eyes changing in strange ways while on camera?
I haven't personally seen any evidence of this. I've met several of these people who are supposed to be reptilians, but I go with Occam's razor. I prefer to think of it as a metaphor that when these people who are normally nice, upstanding citizens suddenly transform and start. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and I just haven't seen any real solid proof these reptilians exist, except for videos, which, as we all know, can be doctored. But certainly it works as a metaphor. Next question.
Hi Ben, we have our last question for today. There is a theory that people like Andrew Jackson, many former presidents, and their partners have never died but changed their identities throughout history, basically immortal. One example of this is that if you take a photo of Andrew Jackson and Jeffrey Epstein, as well as Andrew Jackson's wife and Ghislaine Maxwell, they look almost identical. Do you think that there's anything to these theories?
I don't know, but I'll be honest. They used to put out a picture that showed me looking like Benjamin Franklin, and I think that there's. We are part of a single genetic line going back, from the beginning of life on Earth, and I think a lot of us inherit the mantle or try to, inherit the spirit of these people. So. Because my name is Benjamin, when I was a kid, I read a lot about Benjamin Franklin. I admired him, and I tried to, live a life similar to his. And I think that's what's going on. A lot of us, for example, admire President Jackson and wish to, continue his work. It's us as a species fighting over how we navigate into the future, and that's the real battle. And that is being multi-generational. And it's also spiritual. But I think the forces of light have finally won.
Restored Republic via GCR. Judy note, it's imminent. Global Emergency Broadcast System activation under martial law for a 3-day event and then 10 days of communication darkness while 8 billion people and all banks across the globe complete a global currency reset to gold/asset-backed currencies. Temporary martial law alert. Expect a global blackout and emergency broadcast system (EBS) activation. Military units have been mobilizing worldwide for a coordinated strike to destroy the globalist power structure in the greatest sting operation ever. Every cell phone on the planet will be hit with 7 trumpet sounds transmitted from the Starlink satellites, bypassing the elite-controlled media channels. Afterward, normal communication will cease for 10 days while truthful documentaries take over the airways to explain what's going on. 10 days of communication darkness. Shutdowns will occur, but only in certain areas. Banks will close, ATMs and credit cards will stop working. You'll need at least 3 weeks of food and water. If you're unprepared, don't worry. The military will supply what you need. Non-stop education will be broadcast, teaching about the true principles of freedom and justice. The alliance has spent years preparing for this announcement, quietly building a network of satellites and secure communication lines. Over it, President Trump will give 7 messages to the world about a new era of freedom about to begin. Why? Because over 500,000 arrests of treasonous pedophile deep state globalists were in the process of being made worldwide by Trump's global military alliance. For many years these criminals have had control of the global financial system and have slowly been taking away our freedoms in line with their New World Order Depopulation Agenda 2030. They felt it their right to rule the world and everyone in it. Key to that cabal takeover was the global currency reset of 209 nations that gave the people's taxpayer monies back to the people. On Sunday, 23rd of August, 2026, the new gold/asset-backed quantum financial system of 209 nations was set to go live. It's the dawn of financial transparency, accountability and freedom from cabal control. Obama quietly established a shadow government of radicals to sabotage Donald Trump, the American people and the Constitution, according to Edward Snowden. Through a 501c4, to hide their donors, the Organizing for Action, Obama Foundation and DNC network of criminals consisted of over 32,000 radicals, with 25,000 more in training. The Senior Executive Service, created under Carter, was weaponized under Obama. In December 2015, Obama's one single executive order turned 8,000 civilian generals into a stay-behind army and replaced 6,000 plus of them with Obama deep state loyalists. Radicals were embedded all over the country to cause chaos. Joining them were some of the leading technology companies, the entire left-leaning mainstream media, left-leaning academia, and universities. This created a shadow globalist deep state cabal with Obama at the top to take down Trump and the United States itself. Monday, August 10, 2026. Not only are Democratic Socialists of America members taking a pledge to the Chinese Communist Party, but they are flown over and treated like royalty in China. All of them should be forced to renounce their citizenship. Senator Jim Banks, this is what they want to do to America. Turn it into communist China. And this letter by the leadership of DSA makes that very clear. They stand with socialist communist China and they want the rest of the world to take a page from China's playbook and become that. Trump was also taking down the left's mass protest funding networks in Cuba, where he just increased CIA operations and was not ruling out military operations. Marco Rubio confirmed Cuba is funding NGOs organizing mass protests in America. B. What we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now are supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. Monday, August 10, 2026, the Gates Foundation just developed Mark of the Beast microneedle implants that install permanent quantum dot QR codes and mRNA into your body. Monday, August 10, 2026, cop who was jailed over the arrest of George Floyd believes he was set up to be murdered in prison attack to silence him. Total says if he lied, he would have been spared prison and maybe even been made police chief. He chose to speak the truth because of his Christian faith. Monday, August 10, 2026, Sharia law survivor from Iran sends a chilling warning to the McKinney, Texas City Council, urging them not to build the massive Islamic mosque. I'm here to tell you that this is a dangerous ideology you are allowing into your country. Every Islamic country now used to be a Christian nation, and they allow these people to come in and bring their Sharia law. These people will lie to you to manipulate you while they are weak. They will tell you they come in peace, then all of the sudden you're the UK, where there is now two-tiered policing with Islamophobia laws. I'm telling you, this is a bad idea and you're going to regret it not listening to people like me. Monday, August 10, 2026. Muslims ran the longest and largest slave trade in history. Since the 7th century, Muslims have enslaved up to 30 million Africans and 5 million Europeans. This is still ongoing. The MAGA Legion on Telegram. On Sunday, 22nd of November, 2026, the new ISO 20022 International Banking Standards will go into full effect on this 63rd anniversary of the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. When combined with Basel III and Project Aurora, they will make it almost impossible to hide dark money anywhere in the world that matters. Many people think that Kennedy was killed because he signed Executive Order 11110, which told the U.S. Treasury to avoid the Federal Reserve monetary system and make new money using fixed amounts of U.S. stockpiled silver. This step would have almost certainly caused a huge economic chain reaction around the world that would have brought down the whole European-based central banking empire. See possible timing. Global currency reset. On August 6, 2026, at 14:23 EST, Trump signed Executive Order 2026-1947, allowing them to be released for use of the general public. Distribution to civilian centers begins in September 2026. On Sunday, 23rd of August, 2026, the QFS will go live. It's the dawn of financial transparency, accountability and freedom from cabal control. The 22nd of November, 2026, the new ISO 20022 International Banking Standards will go into full effect on this 63rd anniversary of the assassination of U.S. President. Monday, August 10, 2026. Confirmed intel, the Tier 4B protocol is now active. What was mocked for years as rumor and fantasy has moved into controlled execution. Iraq and Zimbabwe are quietly leading a financial shift that is unfolding outside public markets, driven by structure, security, and silence. The revaluation of IQD and ZIM is no longer speculation. It is operational reality. For years, holders of these currencies endured ridicule while institutions quietly prepared behind closed doors. Now, whispers have turned into verified bank appointments, tiered access structures, and private exchange processes running through U.S. banking channels. The global currency reset has entered its execution phase, and Tier 4B is where the public finally intersects with it. This is not a public forex event. It is a controlled, classified restructuring following a strict tiered framework. Tier 1 involves sovereign governments and central banks. Tier 2 covers multinational corporations and elite financial trusts. Tier 3 includes high-net-worth entities with pre-negotiated contracts. Tier 4B is where private citizens with legally acquired currency holdings are activated. This is the entry point for those who held through silence and delay, and Tier 4B is now live. Major U.S. banks have already moved. Quietly. By appointment only. Private exchange centers are operational, utilizing enhanced security, identity verification, proof of purchase validation, NDAs, and post-exchange wealth structuring. This is not theory, and it is not public-facing. It is controlled execution under blackout conditions. The defining rule of Tier 4B is simple: no walk-ins, no leaks, no spectacle. Participants are vetted. Devices are restricted. Consultations are documented. Discretion is mandatory. This is not a public rollout but a monitored operation designed to prevent market shock and systemic disruption. Inside internal banking systems, exchange values for IQD is already appearing at levels the public cannot see. Public forex platforms lag because they are not part of this track. Tier 4B operates separately, and it is already moving capital. Iraq stands at the center of this reset. Sanctions that suppress the dinar for decades have been lifted. Digital banking infrastructure aligned with international standards is active. UN and US oversight has formally ended, restoring full sovereignty. Internal anti-corruption operations have recovered stolen assets, converting them into revaluation leverage. Iraq is no longer constrained. It is activated. Zimbabwe follow with resource-backed frameworks already in motion. Gold-backed structures and project-based valuation models are aligning for phased integration through 2025 and into 2026. The rollout is deliberate. Initial internal testing is complete. High-volume holders are prioritized first, followed by mid-tier participants, with broader access expanding over the coming weeks. Every step requires identification, proof, NDA compliance, and absolute discretion. This is not hype. It is the culmination of long-planned monetary restructuring. The reset did not arrive loudly. It arrived correctly. Monday, August 10, 2026. Prepare for your GCR exchange/redemption appointment. Jazara show in. Have 2 photo IDs to present at your exchange, count, organize, and have copies of your currency and/or ZIM. Write down a password to identify your personal quantum account. If you plan to immediately purchase a large item, for example, a home, have specific details ready for a proof of funds letter. 2. For humanitarian projects, prepare 2 copies of a 3 to 4 page write-up of your project, 1 to give, 1 to keep. Be ready to provide a short summary and a 5 to 8 minute presentation of your project, details about your project's duration, 20, 50, 100 years, to determine payout, the number of people your project can employ, the amount of funding needed for the first 90 days. Monday, August 10, 2026. Quantum financial system goes live, Cabal wealth seized, global currency reset in motion, quantum satellites and military guarded nodes secure the greatest financial revolution of our time. The quantum financial system, QFS, is no longer in testing, it's here, actively running, exposing and recording every elite move as it rolls out globally. The countdown to full-scale launch has begun, and with it, the world's financial landscape is about to change forever. Transition to the new financial system. Sunday, 9th of August. 2026 global financial reset and asset seizure underway following recent tribunal disclosures. Emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to the exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London and New York are under direct audit as authorities unwind decades of illicit funding used to sustain global operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates and pharmaceutical fronts are facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system is accelerating, backed by asset-based currencies designed to eliminate debt-based manipulation. Old banking rails are being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts are scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, transaction ledgers and digital forensics will be released simultaneously globally to ensure full transparency. This is the systemic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity is collapsing. Stay informed and verify all updates through secure channels. This video is reposted from the blog. Monday, August 10, 2026 QFS deployment updates. Since the start of the year, QFS has been in beta trials within select regions aligned against the global cabal. These test areas now experience instant, secure transactions bypassing traditional banking, feeding data into the quantum ledger that's invulnerable and transparent. Over 100 million real-time transactions daily pass through QFS, each transaction documented and tracked within the world's most secure ledger. Quantum satellites guarding the revolution. 13 quantum satellites, guarded by military alliances, now secure QFS's global network. These satellites, far beyond mainstream agencies like NASA, are developed by classified military contractors and form an unbreakable connection that shields data from hacking. Each transaction is encrypted, every byte safeguarded, ensuring zero vulnerability. Banks in turmoil, system glitches as QFS interferes. Since mid-July 2026, banks in key regions report technical glitches with frozen transactions and fluctuating balances. These are no random errors, they're the first signs of QFS challenging traditional banking. As QFS runs parallel to legacy systems, it exposes every inconsistency, revealing fraudulent transfers and artificial inflation schemes. The cabal's banks are scrambling, terrified by QFS's presence, which audits every move and shines a light on embezzled funds and manufactured scarcity. Countdown to Global Currency Reset, GCR. The Global Currency Reset, GCR, is on the horizon, bringing an asset-backed currency to replace fiat. Governments are already liquidating gold reserves into QFS, preparing for the largest wealth transition in history. Once this reset completes, fiat currencies will be worthless, replaced by an incorruptible system. Military oversight. Final preparations for QFS rollout. Military forces worldwide are securing key QFS nodes and testing sites, ensuring the system remains uncompromised. August 2026 marks a pivotal month, with special ops safeguarding regional hubs. This presence shows the stakes. If QFS fails, The cabal regains control, but with soldiers securing these hubs, the elite's last vestiges of power crumble. Prepare yourself, the storm will break with QFS. From Sunday 23rd of August, 2026, the QFS is no longer a test, it's the dawn of transparency, accountability, and freedom from cabal control. The countdown has begun, and there's nowhere left for the elites to hide. The quantum financial system is here to end every lie and deception ever used against us. On Monday, August 10, 2026, breaking, the four portals of the quantum financial system, QFS, USA, European, UK, and Asia-Africa-Australia portals, are set to connect and transform the world. Discover how these portals will bring transparency, asset-backed currencies, and global financial freedom, ending deep state control. The quantum financial system, QFS, is here, set to forever change how the world handles money. The era of corrupt financial practices, hidden transactions, and deep state manipulation is coming to an end. The QFS promises transparency, security, and direct control over personal finances. The system operates through its four portals, gateways connecting the world's financial networks. This isn't just another financial overhaul, it's a transformation of the global economy. The four portals of the QFS connect continents and bring financial autonomy to millions. 1. USA Portal, the lifeblood of the Americas, covering North, Central, and South America. The USA Portal ensures connection to the QFS across the Western Hemisphere. The introduction of the US note, USN, an asset-backed currency tied to gold and silver, replaces the corrupt system centered around the US dollar. With this shift, the Federal Reserve's control over the American economy ends, marking the collapse of the fiat system. Impact on everyday people. The USA Portal will empower citizens from Canada to Chile with direct access to their wealth, free from bank manipulation. This portal brings unprecedented stability through the USN, an asset-backed currency providing financial sovereignty across the continent. 2. European Portal, reclaiming financial sovereignty, breaking free from the euro. The European Portal allows countries like Spain, Italy, France, and Germany to reclaim financial independence. Each nation will issue its own QFS-linked currency backed by assets, ensuring the end of financial manipulation. A united, yet independent Europe. Under the QFS, each country will manage its economy independently while retaining transparency and security. This shift means financial freedom for individuals and national autonomy, signaling the end of the deep state's control over Europe's financial systems. 3. UK Portal, a return to sterling strength. The UK Portal introduces the sterling token, an asset-backed currency restoring financial independence to England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. This new currency, supported by the QFS, ends Britain's reliance on the euro and deep state influence, with each transaction secure and traceable. 4. Asia-Africa-Australia Portal, a continental shift in power. Covering a vast area including India, South Africa, Australia, and all of Asia, this portal represents a seismic shift in global financial power. The QFS will support these nations with asset-backed currencies, promoting economic prosperity from their own resources rather than exploitation by external forces. Unleashing a new wave of prosperity, Asia, Africa, and Australia, once battlegrounds for financial manipulation, will experience newfound prosperity. This portal promises a future where wealth benefits the people and economies of these regions, free from external interference. The grip of the deep state is loosening as financial freedom becomes a reality. Monday, August 10, 2026. Global financial reset and asset seizure underway following recent tribunal disclosures. Emergency economic measures have been activated to freeze assets linked to the exposed shell corporations and offshore accounts. Central bank hubs across Switzerland, London and New York are under direct audit as authorities unwind decades of illicit funding used to sustain global operations. Over 200 major corporate entities, media conglomerates and pharmaceutical fronts are facing immediate asset freezes. Financial controllers and compliance officers are cooperating with military intelligence to map out the entire liquidity chain and recover hidden funds. The transition to a quantum financial system is accelerating, backed by asset-based currencies designed to eliminate debt-based manipulation. Old banking rails are being decommissioned to prevent capital flight by those named in the sealed indictments. Public disclosure broadcasts are scheduled to begin across major emergency alert system overrides. Documentary evidence, Transaction ledgers and digital forensics will be released simultaneously globally to ensure full transparency. This is the systemic dismantling of the old guard. The financial infrastructure that supported impunity is collapsing. Stay informed and verify all updates through secure channels. Monday, August 10, 2026 update. New list of 209 countries that are connected to the QFS system or are being connected. QFS plus RTGS trust the plan. Boom. Today, we uncover the intricate web of banks that are now aligning with the QFS system. The QFS, or Quantum Financial System, has been the subject of much speculation, whispers in dimly lit rooms, and late-night conspiracy theory forums. Some say it's the future, while others claim it's just another fanciful myth. But what if I told you that 97 of the top 100 central banks are being covertly connected to this system?